sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo.
Doobie-doobie-doo. What's going on? Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. Quick heads up, now that I mentioned that schedule, because I don't want to forget to mention this, and apparently I did last time. You guys know I told you I'm working on a documentary, and that is taking up quite a bit of my time. And because I'm working on that documentary, I'm not going to be live on Friday evenings. It's just a lot to put together 10 news stories back to back, like Thursday, Friday. That's like 10 news stories. And then also I do need time to work with the editor. So we've been meeting every Wednesday. So just FYI, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. Fridays is kind of hectic for me. So just giving you a heads up about that new schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Max is here. Max, you can give me a thumbs up whenever you are ready to come in, and I'll bring you in whenever you're ready. Okay, I guess that's a thumbs up. All right, guys, we're going to get things started off with our special guest, Max Blumenthal. He is the founder of The Gray Zone, and he is back from Iran, and I want to hear all about this. Let's go ahead and bring him in. What's going on, Max?
The hostage saga is over. I'm free.
Oh my God. I want to hear so much about this because like I saw some of your pictures and your videos on Twitter of your visit, you and Anya's visit in Iran. And I think we have a lot of questions like about the visit. Like first and foremost, was this visit just to meet with Professor Morandi, or was it to visit the nuclear research site? What was the full purpose of the trip? And how was your journey there?
Good question. I was invited to do a few panels and participate in something called the Sub Festival, which is like a national broadcast festival in Tehran. Like the whole broadcast industry of Iran comes out and they have stands, and there's an award ceremony at the opening, and awards are given out. There was a special Palestine section. Unfortunately, I didn't win anything, but I was invited along with many people, I think, who've been on your show, academics, former lawmakers like George Galloway, Mick Wallace, Claire Daly from the EU, journalists from everywhere from Lebanon to Venezuela to across Europe and the United States. People we all know and follow, whose commentary we follow. They were there as part of this festival. The festival lasted like 4 or 5 days. I did a panel discussion and with Alistair Crook, former British diplomat, and the former EU lawmakers, Mick Wallace and Claire Daly. My wife, Anya Parampil, did a panel as well. And then we were just sort of like, and I should mention, I paid our own way. I didn't accept any compensation to be there. And, no one paid for our tickets or anything. But it was like a planned event. And the event itself offered me access and unprecedented journalistic opportunities at a time when the Trump administration and Iran were engaged in what are said to be indirect talks, but they're really just like straight up talks in Oman over Iran's nuclear program. So this was like the time to be there, and Trump was threatening war. Like there was what seemed to be an attack on the Bandar Abbas port in southern Iran right before we arrived. So it was like a really momentous event. And I got access to, as you mentioned, the Tehran Nuclear Research Center, which is an active civilian nuclear reactor. I got access to the, and it's open to the public if you ask and request to go and visit. I got access to the Aerospace Museum in Iran, or Aerospace Park, which is an exhibition of Iran's ballistic missiles, drones, including drones captured from the United States, its space program, its anti-aircraft systems. And, it's not that unique to Iran. Like the US puts its weapons and armaments on display at museums as well. And again, this is open to the public, but I was able to get in there, get a tour. I missed the tour in which an active duty IRGC officer who serves as spokesman hosted a tour group. So I didn't get to meet any military personnel, but it was still a remarkable kind of history that I got there. And you saw my video. And I know Mohammed Morandi, he may have been on your show as well, but he's popular in the alternative media world. He's an academic, American studies professor and post-colonial studies professor, I believe, at University of Tehran. And we've been, in touch for years. So I met him actually while there at the Behesht-e-Zahra Martyrs Cemetery, which is in southern Tehran, in a very working class area. I took the metro down there, the Tehran metro, all the way from North Tehran, all the way through the city for over an hour, which was an experience in itself. And then I met him there, and Professor Morandi took me to the graves of his friends who died in combat alongside him during the 8-year-long Iran-Iraq war, known as the War of Holy Defense in Iran. And since the killing of Major General Qasem Soleimani by the Trump administration back in 2018, there have been these kind of pilgrimages to this martyrs cemetery, kind of a display of Iranian nationalism, honoring everyone who sacrificed for the Islamic Republic by their families who support the Islamic Republic. And it's sort of this spontaneous event, like a festival-like atmosphere every Thursday night and throughout the day on Thursday. So I was able to witness that while Professor Morandi, told me war stories. And that video is online as well. I wasn't able to do any video inside the nuclear reactor because they don't allow cameras or recording devices in there. I just had like a pad and a paper. But I gained a lot of insight into the importance of the civilian nuclear program, which is at the center of the whole nuclear debate and the standstill in nuclear negotiations between the US and Iran. And so after the conference was over, I was just kind of on my own. And so I went with Anya to Isfahan, which is an incredibly beautiful Iranian city that sort of reminds me of like Venice without tourists, and was able to gain more insight into Iranian society there and just do some tourism, learn about Iranian history. I spent some time with the Jewish community there, which is part of the second largest Jewish community in the Middle East outside of Israel. There are 10,000 Jews in Iran. I also met with communal leadership in Tehran and, spoke to them about Zionism, had some very candid conversations. Also, wrapped to feeling. I did Sunday morning prayers with them. So, which were very different from the style of prayers that I was raised in which I was raised. But overall, just an incredible experience. I returned to Tehran after that. I didn't have a minder I didn't have someone kind of guiding me and telling me what to do. I could just get up any day and do whatever I wanted. And, that led me into sitting down and having conversations with veteran Iranian diplomats who were close to the negotiations, or going to museums in Tehran, which are some of the most fascinating museums, like the Savak Torture Museum, which is basically a recreation inside a real torture center in the final stages of Shah Pahlavi's rule, where dissidents, including the current Ayatollah Khamenei, were held and tortured. And there are mannequins reenacting the torture with lifelike replicas of the actual torturers there. I produced a video on that with Propaganda and Company, which is a Twitter account you all should be following. And also saw the former U.S. Embassy, where hostages were held at the beginning of Iran's revolution in 1979. U.S. Embassy personnel were taken hostage. The U.S. attempted to rescue them through a failed operation in which U.S. helicopters and a transport aircraft crashed in the Tabas desert in Iran in a sandstorm that Ayatollah Khomeini, who led the Iranian revolution, called an act of God. I got to see like the wreckage of those aircraft in the yard of the U.S. Embassy, then go inside the U.S. Embassy. And it's, there's a display of art, kind of like propaganda, elucidating all of the harm that the U.S. has caused to Iran over the years, from medical sanctions to the Iran-Contra scandal. The conference room in the embassy is fascinating. It's completely ensconced in aluminum foil and plate glass in order to prevent them from being spied on. And then all the encryption tools, that the sort of primitive analog encryption tools that the U.S. Embassy used to spy on Iranians and advise the Shah were all there. So, I did a Twitter thread on that. And I could have just kept rolling with it. There was so much to learn, so much to do there every day. But, my time was up. So I spent about 2 weeks there. And, I think I gained a lot of insight, but the trip raised more questions than I had going in, because I learned so much, and Iranian society is so complex and multi-layered. Another observation that I would offer is just walking through the streets of a city, Isfahan or Tehran, on any given day would lead to a new conversation with random people in a park or on a street corner every few minutes. They get so few visitors there, and it's so rare that they get Americans there that they all wanted to talk to me. And then they volunteered their own opinions, and no one I met was afraid to offer their opinion of the government. And some people would openly call for regime change. Other people would offer more, pro-Islamic Republic opinions, but no one was afraid to say what they thought to me. I had some really open conversations with a very broad cross-section of Iranian society.
So I saw this picture, and I want to get back to what some of the people may have said. This picture here at the Nuclear Research Center here. Is that a Jamal Baraka?
Yeah, Jamal was on the trip with us.
Wow.
And that's David Miller and Glenn Deason.
Oh yeah, that's right. That is Glenn. Okay. That is awesome. And I'm curious about this as well. I saw your video of you and Professor Morandi when you were like walking like down the street. And one of the things I noticed is like the streets looked so clean.
Yes.
Like I'm not used to that. And so I was just like, oh my God, this like it just Iran doesn't like or Tehran, like it doesn't look like what I thought it looked like.
Yeah, so I took the subway down there to that cemetery. The subway was very clean, like meticulously clean, including inside. It's very crowded and people get tired of taking it. They say one of the reasons it's so crowded is that it's hard for them to keep as many subway cars online as they should because of sanctions. because they have to do repairs and it's sometimes hard to get spare parts. I saw the same thing in Venezuela. And subways are just crowded in general, and people just complain about everything. I think if they had to compare it with the New York subway, they would have taken the Tehran metro any day, because it was so clean, completely safe. There's a car just for women if women want to take it, but you'll see women in the, cars with men. And in North Tehran and in many of the parts of Tehran, most of the women were not wearing their headscarf. They would just wear it around their neck.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, because I know many people wanted to know that. So that's not true then, that all the women have to wear the headscarf in at least Tehran.
No, the government has just taken their foot off the gas pedal on the whole hijab issue. It's the sense I got, and this was told to me anecdotally, that after the Masa Amini color revolution, the women life freedom protests, which turned very violent and led to over 50 police officers being killed, the government decided to kind of take that card away from the West. And so they're not really enforcing it. There were occasions where I traveled with Anya, so I got to see it on a more intimate level, just traveling with a woman. I can only recall one incident where she was asked to put on her headscarf. We went into a rest stop in the desert between Isfahan and Tehran. And there were two women there whose job was to kind of, watch for breaches of morality, including the headscarf. And they were not paying attention at all. They were just sitting there on their phones, and people were not wearing headscarves around them. There have been grassroots protests, including by women who are pro-Islamic revolution, demanding that the state enforce the headscarf again. And they were basically, in many cases, told to go home, to just kind of to chill out and let the state handle it, and not to engage in vigilantism. Because one thing the state is afraid of or does not want is a massive conflict between the secular part of the public, which is very large, and the religious part of the public, which is large and still very ideologically motivated. And among younger people, you will see more harmony between those two parts of the public, since they go to school together. Also, I saw that among the more like activist minded part of the public, that's more like intellectually inclined and highly politically educated, is that they want to put that issue aside in order to confront Western empire. So yeah, it's not what you expect at all. Getting on the flight to Tehran, a woman got on the flight from Istanbul on my connecting flight wearing just a sports bra, and no one even put on anything remotely associated with the more conservative social mores until they were about to get off the flight. On the subway and all around Tehran, you'll see youth engaged in public displays of affection, holding hands, not in wedlock. You will see goths at there's a Friday kind of hippie market that's pretty large, a crafts market that I went to. It's called the Parvaneh Market. And it's you'll see goths there. You'll see punk rock kids. You'll see hippies. You'll smell marijuana.
What?
People drink in the privacy of their homes. And I was told that there are nightclubs that are underground. I was told there are even strip clubs. I didn't go to Iran to participate in stuff that I can just do anywhere in the US, that I don't even do in the US anyway. But so I didn't really see any of it, but that's what I was told. And it's kind of like, as long as it's, kept out of public view and it isn't forced down everyone's throat, and they're not trying to have a gigantic world pride parade in the middle of Tehran, then the government seems to want to avoid having a gigantic culture war confrontation. That was the sense I got. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So again, I learned a lot from watching your videos, and I'm curious. I know you got to talk to different people in the population. What were some of the conversations or some of the things that you heard from some of the Jewish population in Iran, which is interesting, by the way, because corporate media doesn't mention that. They don't mention that Iran also has the second largest Jewish population in the Middle East. But how are they feeling about, not just obviously this so-called deal that Trump is trying to do, but what's happening in Gaza and all of this?
So on the Jewish population question, I mean, they are a small community, but they're much larger than, Egypt or Lebanon or Iraq, where the population was just eviscerated by the onset of Zionism. Zionism made Jews in the Arab world an object of suspicion. It demanded that they basically demonstrate dual loyalty to Israel. The Zionist underground planted bombs in Jewish community centers in Baghdad in order to compel the Jewish population to flee Iraq in terror to the safety of the new Jewish state. Everyone can look up the Lavon affair, spelled Lavon, which helps explain how the Egyptian Jewish community was collapsed by Zionism. It was another kind of false flag attack, very cynical attack staged by Zionists. Don't really have time to go into it, but this didn't happen in Iran, partly because they had a friendly, pro-Western, kind of vassalized government. I wouldn't say a vassal government, but a friendly, pro-Western government. And Shah Pahlavi forged close ties with Israel, business ties, intelligence ties. Mossad even advised him on torture and trying to crush the rebellion that emerged starting in 1964. And in 1979, when the Islamic Revolution took place, a portion of the Jewish community did leave. And there are now something like 200,000 Iranian Jews in Israel. It's a very large, or outside of Iran. They also are in Westwood, and almost all of them are Zionist, like right-wing Zionist. I don't know if you remember the attacks on the UCLA Palestine Solidarity encampment last year with like metal pipes. Those were Persian Jews in Westwood attacking them for the most part. Inside Iran, the population tends to be older. Their community is shrinking. I mean, they told me that it's harder for them to find, women to marry and have families there. And of course, they're encouraged to leave and enticed by Israel. The Jewish agency in Israel offers to pay them to leave. Iran has allowed trips, and this is very unusual. It's allowed its Jewish population to actually visit family members in Israel in return in order to foster the long-term stability of their community in Iran. But in 1979, the Islamic Republic issued its constitution and gave rights to minorities in Iran in a formal sense for the first time. So Jews in Iran were actually given rights under the Islamic Republic. They have a right to one seat in parliament. They're guaranteed one seat. I mean, if there is somehow a popular Jewish politician who wants to run for president, they can't win because you have to be a Muslim to be president. But they get one seat. They're protected. They have rights. They have some rights that Muslims don't have. For example, they're allowed to have they're allowed to drink alcohol and not be punished because it's part of their religion. Same with Christians. Like I interacted with the Armenian Christian community there, and they're given free worship rights. They don't have this panic and anxiety about anti-Semitism the way American Jews do. Like they're not looking for a hate crime around every corner, and they're not really experiencing it. You can see them walking around openly with kippahs on. Their synagogues have Hebrew writing and, Jewish symbols on them. And no one's, if anyone does do anything, they'll be harshly punished. I told everyone around Iran that I was Jewish. There was no fear of me being Jewish there at all. However, because of Zionism and because of Israel's war on Iran and its determination to remove its government, Israel has recruited many, many spies inside Iran. And those spies have killed people. They have wreaked havoc. Just 2 days ago, an accused Mossad spy was executed in Iran. I met in the Nuclear Research Center in Tehran the son of a quantum theorist his father was murdered in front of his home by an Iranian who was working for the Mossad, because the Mossad kills Iranian nuclear scientists and scientists who can contribute to the nuclear program. Wow. So that has imperiled the Jewish community inside Iran. And some of them do have Zionist sympathies. So the leadership of the Jewish community in Iran has to take an officially anti-Zionist line in order to remove any suspicion that they would collaborate with Israel. And it's hard to tell how sincere they are, although one of the community leaders I talked to in Isfahan seemed to have a very sincere opposition to Zionism, and said that, he, just by being there, sees a different side of the issue because he's watching different media and he has many Muslim friends and he sees the horror in Palestine and he's disgusted by it. Israel is just the Hebrew word for Jacob. So he said to me, we are sons of Jacob, not sons of Israel. And I found that to be very powerful. And the Jewish leadership in Iran has consistently made anti-Zionist statements. But that doesn't mean the entire community, there aren't people in that overall community that don't sympathize with Zionism and don't resent the Islamic Republic. But overall, the community is basically non-political, and materially, they're doing very well. Like they're wealthier than the average Iranians. They're doing business, and of course, they're affected by sanctions, but they're doing well. They are safe and protected, and they have constitutional rights, so they're doing well in that respect too. But they are not, politically assertive, and they're getting older. And there's this pull from the West, from like the community in LA and from Israel, like enticing them to leave. And I think that's really sad, because this is such an ancient community. I actually visited a shrine to Serat Bat Asher. Serat Bat Asher is the granddaughter of Jacob. This is a shrine to the granddaughter of Jacob, who supposedly waited with him for Joseph to emerge from exile at this area 45 minutes outside Isfahan. And next to that shrine, where Jews and Muslims make pilgrimage, was a 9th century Jewish cemetery. There's graves there from the 9th century, and it's still active. People are still burying their family members there. And, Zionism seeks to do away with this. At the same time, think about the concept of Greater Israel. These are like deeply holy sites to Jews. In fact, in a city called Hamadan, 3 hours west of Tehran, is the tomb of Mordecai and Esther, who are the main figures in the Jewish Purim, tale of Purim. My Hebrew name is Mordecai. So these are like some of the holiest figures in Judaism, and their tomb is there. The settlement movement of Israel, they would love to possess that land. This is part of their drive for regime change in Iran, is they want to conquer that land and take it, at least by having some pro-Israel vassal government that lets them go there. And you can see that they're starting to go, like Chabad rabbis are starting to go to Syria now that they have some sellout government there that has no control over anything. They want to take Jordan. There are holy sites there. If you look at the Israeli flag, which is just one of the most cynical and dangerous flags ever drawn up, they take the symbol of the Jewish faith, which is like an arrow pointing downwards and an arrow pointing upwards, symbolizing kind of the harmony of the mental and physical, the spiritual. And then you have 2 lines, 2 blue lines. Those 2 blue lines are 2 rivers that could be the Nile River and the Euphrates, and everything between those rivers is Greater Israel. But that could even go further. It could even go further into Iran. So the flag is sort of a symbolic representation of Greater Israel. The 1913 Jewish National Fund Charter spelled out the land of Israel, where they aim to build a state, as anywhere between those two rivers. And Israel currently has no internationally recognized borders and will not agree to any peace proposal that forces them to state where their borders are. And I got some insight into that messianic colonialist thinking, realizing how many Jewish holy sites are in Iran and how there's this community there that's really under attack from the outside by Zionism and not from the inside.
This is why I've kind of pointed my fingers at like Jordan and Egypt and Saudi Arabia for not wanting to hold Israel accountable. And I understand that they're puppets of the West. I totally get that. But the Queen of Jordan is Palestinian. And it's like, if you see what Israel is doing to Gaza, you see what they're doing to the West Bank, there's no stopping them from coming after you. There's no stopping them from expanding to Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. And Netanyahu is on record saying that they want to go in and liberate Africa. I think we know what that means. So there's no, I don't know why they would think that they would be safe. And now that you told me about those holy sites that are in Iran, same thing. Like, there's nothing stopping them from trying to take over Iran. And you got to know, like, Max, like, I feel like politicians, like people like Trump and Biden, they have to know this. They have to know like what Israel really wants to become. So while you were gone, there's all these talks about Donald Trump saying that he's going to make a deal with Iran, and he had his trip to the Middle East and all that jazz, right? What deal does he think he's going to be able to make? Because I couldn't imagine Iran saying we're not going to have nuclear weapons when the people around them do.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, in talking to Iranian diplomats, it was clear to me that they were sincere about abiding by the non-proliferation treaty, the NPT, which forbids production of nuclear grade weapons. Like, they will not enrich to the point where they can produce a nuclear warhead, and they feel that their deterrence is strong enough without it. However, my visit to the nuclear reactor and just further discussions illustrated powerfully that Iran will not give up enrichment of uranium. They consider that to be a right. I mean, they frame it in terms of nuclear rights, and I think they're correct. There is no treaty preventing them from enriching uranium. And when they enrich uranium, what do they use it for? They use it to produce radioisotopes that provide advanced medical care to 1 million Iranians, cancer drugs, PET scans. I mean, remember, they're under sanctions and they're doing this all domestically, including mining uranium domestically. So if you want to determine if you have cancer or not, you need a PET scan, and you need to be shot up with fluid before the PET scan so that you light up under the scan. And that's produced through its domestic nuclear program. They sterilize medical devices through their nuclear program. They sterilize agricultural products so that mites and other forms of infestations don't eat them through nuclear products. They produce all sorts of anti-cancer drugs and administer radiotherapy. So this is part of their argument this is part of why they're telling the Trump administration, we will not go to 0% enrichment. We will not agree to that. They also want to diversify their energy supply. There were blackouts of 1 hour to 2 hours per day, and they want to bring more power plants online through nuclear energy. Currently, they're only getting 1% of their energy supply from nuclear through the Fordo plant, but they want to increase that. And there's this new proposal by Iran to have a nuclear consortium in which they share uranium and other nuclear advancements with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, who are historic adversaries, especially Saudi Arabia. So this is a way of kind of forging peace through cooperation. And Iran, under sanctions, has gained a comparative edge over its regional neighbors through its nuclear program. And by the way, the nuclear program came to Iran through the Atoms for Peace program that was launched by Dwight Eisenhower, the American president, and a Stanford program then helped launch the Tehran Nuclear Research Center starting in 1973 under the Shah. So the US actually assisted them, and the Shah himself saw nuclear activity the same way the Islamic Republic does, as just something that's essential to national development. And then I mentioned the assassination of Iranian nuclear scientists. The Oppenheimer of Iran, like someone who's considered the godfather of their nuclear program and is a revered figure, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was assassinated by the Mossad. His convoy was attacked by a remote-controlled machine gun drone that was smuggled into the country by Mossad agents and placed on a roadside in 2020. And so many other scientists have been killed. I actually visited the shrine where he is buried in the middle of Tehran. And they're not going to let those people just die in vain and say, oh, well, they've gave their lives for this program, and we're just going to give it up for a little bit of sanctions relief. Especially when in 2015, when Iran signed the JCPOA, they didn't really get a lot of sanctions relief. They didn't get anything. I mean, you talk to people there and they're like, yeah, nothing really changed for us. So why should we go back to all that? So they're not going to end enrichment. They will agree to not produce a nuclear weapon. And there probably won't be a deal. And I doubt that the US can abide by a deal anyway. And so do most Iranians that I spoke to.
So then if there isn't a deal, do you foresee Israel choosing to strike Iran?
Yes. So I think they'll choose to strike. The question is how. And they may have already done so, like the Bandar Abbas attack at the Shah Abbas port in this city called Bandar Abbas. Was a major attack. Like hundreds of Iranians were injured. I think 70 were killed. This is a port where like the CIA and Israeli intelligence have accused Iran of using it to like ship support to Ansar Allah, the Houthis in Yemen, to ship them fuel for their missiles, their ballistic missiles. I don't know if that's true or not, but 3 separate facilities were blown up just a few days before I arrived in Iran. How do you just have an accident where 3 separate facilities in a port just simultaneously blow up and they're not connected to one another? It seems like that could have been an Israeli attack. That's the kind of the style of attack that Iran has become accustomed to, where it's sabotage, it's assassination. I don't believe Israel has the capacity to just wipe out Iran's nuclear program with its air force. And if they were to attack Iran's nuclear plants, there is True Promise 3, which is the third military operation that Iran has not yet executed. They've done True Promise 1 and 2. And in True Promise 2, they missed Mossad headquarters with a ballistic missile by, I'd say, a few meters. There may have been a technical flaw that they needed to correct. But, in talking to Iranian government officials, on the diplomatic side and asking them, when does True Promise 3 happen? They would say, well, here's why we didn't think that, like, it wasn't deemed wise. Like, they don't actually have any control over that. Like, it's a military issue. But from their perspective, it wasn't deemed wise to execute it. And now they're in negotiations with the US. So they're going to give that a chance. But if there's an impasse and Israel attacks, Iran would presumably respond with a massive retaliation. And it might not even just be aimed at Israel. They could take out installations, facilities, and assets in the Persian Gulf, and the Strait of Hormuz could be closed, and the global economy would be tanked.
But I feel like that's what Israel wants. I feel like Israel wants to attack Iran so that Iran can respond. And then, of course, like Netanyahu can play victim and say, oh my God, we're under attack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's what they want them to do.
Yeah, this is an anti-Semitic hate crime against the Jewish people. Well, the reason that that Israel wants Iran to retaliate is because Israel has escalation dominance, and it has the U.S. backing it up. Anytime Israel falters, the U.S. will. They assume the U.S. will save it. So they want to drag Iran into an escalation game and have them try to climb the escalation ladder, because Israel believes it can always occupy the top spot, or they'll be able to drag the U.S. in, which is Netanyahu's ultimate dream, is to get the U.S. into a direct, full-scale conflict with Iran, something I don't think Trump wants to engage in. So yeah, it's a delicate situation. It's a precarious situation, and Israel wants to inflame everything. Which, I mean, and that's one of the major reasons why I think Iran is willing to entertain these talks, is to avoid regional war. But it also needs to be said that Iran does have deterrence. Iran can do an enormous amount of damage if it is attacked. And Israel has, in the past, pretty badly underestimated its foes. Consider its thinking on October 6, 2023.
I have to tell you, after 9/11, I feel like the media did a very good job of brainwashing Americans against people that are Muslim or, Arab. And I think what our government was no longer prepared for is that people kind of woke up from that. So I think even after like October 7th happened, the response that they received with the protest, et cetera, they didn't really know how to answer to that. And I don't think they were expecting that at all. They're probably just looking around like, oh my God, where did they get this information from? And then of course you hear all this rhetoric about disinformation, or we have to silence these people, we have to control the platforms, et cetera. I really just think that they were very surprised that we weren't falling for like that type of like propaganda anymore, and that we have been reading about what happened to the Palestinian people, and we learned more about the Middle East. And I think it made them very nervous, like people like Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, who were used to like spreading this propaganda. They didn't really know how to deal with that people were pushing back on corporate media and saying, no, you guys are lying. Like, these people were occupied, they were oppressed, et cetera. And I don't think they knew how to handle that. And then we saw again on, not too long after that, on TikTok, we saw that Osama bin Laden's letter to America all of a sudden resurfaces again. And you see people making videos saying, oh my God, I didn't know about this. Now I know why So I think like if that were to happen, like if Israel attacks Iran and Iran responds, I think like once again, I think corporate media has definitely lost the narrative here. They've lost the influence, particularly over a lot of younger American people. And I don't think that propaganda would work the way that they wanted to. How do people in Iran feel though? Like, how did they give any like perspective about how they feel about the West?
Well, yeah, great question. I mean, almost everyone watching this, and certainly me and you, we've grown up in the core of empire where Palestine is a dissident cause, and our government has completely abandoned the people of Gaza to a Holocaust, and it supports the Holocaust. So we see it in an almost completely different way than people who have grown up our age and younger inside the Islamic Republic since 1979, where their government has placed Palestine at the center of their national ideology, their ethos. It's, part of the essence of the Islamic Republic is to defend the oppressed of the region. It speaks to their interpretation of Shia Islam as a theology of the oppressed. And they would, the principalist camp in Iran would like to establish a nuclear weapons program in order to put all of the oppressed people of the region under a protective nuclear umbrella. And, I think many people who support Palestine we might correctly see that as the only way to stop this genocide. That doesn't mean through nuclear war, but just deterrence. Hey, we have a nuclear weapon too. You can't do this. But that doesn't mean all of the public supports that. If you see Palestine as the official cause and the media puts it forward as the official cause, and there are protests every Friday that are state-sponsored protests after Friday prayers for Palestine and against Israel, then you associate it with the state. And then if you decide you don't like the state because it's not giving you freedom, and you look at social media and see all these people in the West who are free, and there are all these influencers that you want to emulate, and you want to live the life that, you know, we have had in the US, where we've had a First Amendment, where we can speak out against our government from a corner where we're not allowed to have any effect. And I guess they don't understand that. But if we do have any effect, then we'll get treated like Julian Assange or Edward Snowden. But they see it that way. And so it would feel unfamiliar or even shocking for people like us to meet some of our counterparts there and talk to them about Palestine and hear them say, we don't care because it's far away from Iran and we shouldn't be spending our money on it. And that's the message that's constantly reinforced through the most popular news outlets in Iran, which are piped into Iran through private satellite channels. And middle-class Iranians all watch them. BBC Persia and Iran International, which is also run out of London and is sponsored by Saudi Arabia. And they're constantly reporting on how Iran is spending all this money on foreign operations to support Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas. And then, you know, infrastructure is crumbling at home, and they're always trying to drive the wedge, and it's had an effect. On one of my last nights in Tehran, I went to a place called Palestine Cafe, which is modeled after the kind of cafes you go to in the West Bank. It even looks like them. They're in the main salon. There are large keys, you know, the symbol of the Palestinian refugee. Downstairs, there are walls honoring Palestinian heroes. You know, Ahed Tamimi, Edward Said, the fallen Hamas martyrs. They're all on the wall. And you look at the clientele, and it's a cool cafe. But, you know, other cafes in Tehran that I would go to, which most of the people would actually not be wearing, the women would not be wearing headscarves, or they'd look more secular. Here, you could tell it was a more religious crowd. And I asked my friends who had taken me there, you know, what accounts for that? And they said secular people who are middle class in Iran if they don't support Palestine, it's because the Islamic Republic's leadership tells them to support Palestine, and they do the exact opposite of what their leadership tells them to do and distrust anything the leaders say. So they don't even assess the issue on its merits, which is sort of, it's like an inversion of the world, that the cultural and political world we inhabit here in the West. Highly unusual. Having said that, I mean, you know, solidarity is strong there among people who are politically educated. And I did get to talk to some leftists in Iran, like Marxist-minded secular people, and they support the Islamic Republic on a pragmatic basis, even though it's, you know, they're not religious and they're not conservative. They support resistance against empire and see Iran as the country in the region that is supporting Western hegemony more than any other country, and possibly more than any other country in the world.
Wow.
And they would like to support Palestine more organically, but they said that, you know, one thing I heard was that the state tries to monopolize all Palestine solidarity displays, and so it's hard for leftists to come out and, you know, do their own protests. So it's just a little bit more complex than we think. And there is not this total consensus support for Palestine. And a lot of it is just kind of reactionary, secular opposition to, or secular skepticism of the Islamic Republic. There are so many, you know, layers Like I would talk to people who are support the reformist side of the Iranian government, who are middle class, who even say like, why do we even bother having a nuclear program when there are so many blackouts? They're so critical. But then when it comes down to it, they totally support their leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Like they hate the government and they say it's so corrupt and there's all this mismanagement everywhere, but they support the leader. And like that, you know, that's something that was fairly common in conversations I had, was there might be a disgust with the government, but there's at the same time can be a respect for the sort of spiritual guide who is the symbol of the Islamic Republic.
That's really interesting. What was it like to meet, to hang out with Professor Morandi in person?
Well, we'd actually hung out before. We were at a conference in Turkey last November, and it's a lot like hanging out with him online, except he has an even better sense of humor in person. And yeah, I really enjoy hanging out with him, and he's an incredibly inquisitive person. I would want to learn so much from him, but he would have so many questions for me about what's happening in the US, which is a country he grew up in. And I would love to see Tucker Carlson interview him, just so that the Trump world, the broader world of like Trump and MAGA, could see how he interprets and explains Iran and the Islamic Republic in such an easy to understand, accessible way. I think he'd be the ideal guest, but we just haven't reached that moment yet. We haven't reached the moment where there's a deal. That's how we'll know that a deal is about to take place. And again, Morandi's independent. Like, he's not a member of the government. His father was a health minister, but he's an independent academic. And, he gets panned in Western media. It's like, oh, the IRGC professor, but he's totally independent. And just seeing him operate inside Iran, you can actually see that he's just his own thing. But yeah, that was a priceless experience for me, because you see how much just Iranians have sacrificed, in how many lives have been lost so they could have an independent political system, a political system that was independent of Western hegemony. And what Professor Morandi said to me at the Martyrs Cemetery in Tehran was, every person buried here, the US is responsible for in one way or the other.
I believe it. Well, something else happened while you were in Iran. So I have to ask if it happened to you. I'm sure you heard about it by now, but influencer, Twitch host Hassan Piker was detained when he came back from the United States, and he went to France, and they detained him from, coming back from France, and asked him questions about, like, does he support Hamas and all that kind of stuff. And the first thing I thought was, well, Max and Anya are in Iran, like, what's going to happen to them? So I think a lot of people may be curious, like, how did it go when you returned, like, to the United States? Did you guys have smooth sailing, or did they try to detain you as well?
What happened to Hassan Piker, and I've never watched a second of one of his live streams, so it's like just someone I hear about from time to time. What happened to him, I think, is called a TREC, TREC, and it's like a traveler recognition by customs, that whenever a traveler they recognize is getting off a flight who they want to flag and question, they just issue a TREC. And then it doesn't matter where they're coming from. They intercept them before they reach the customs line and take them into secondary screening, and then just begin talking to them. I don't know what they thought they would get from him. I don't know why they think he's dangerous. He's basically he seems to me to be like a propagandist for the AOC Bernie wing of the Democratic Party, which isn't exactly like some radical threat to the system, but he supports Palestine.
Right.
So it was absurd that they did that to him. To me, it showed some kind of paranoia and a really crude perspective. And it looked like retaliation against the Democrats because he's anti-Trump. The same thing did happen to me. The same exact thing happened to me, but it wasn't returning from Iran. I was coming back from Nicaragua with my family, and we were just on vacation. I hadn't done any political activities. I wrote about this. This was last February, and I guess a trek was issued for me, and I was taken into secondary screening, and the customs officer, he was very polite, and he didn't seem to want to drag it out too much, but he just like whipped out a piece of paper with names on it, mostly Muslim or Arab names, but also the birth name. I didn't know it at the time. It was the birth name of Medea Benjamin. And he said, "Do you know any of these individuals?" And I said, "No, I don't." And I couldn't commit them all to memory. One of the names might have actually been Mahmoud Khalil. It looked like this was like when they were about to start arresting a lot of the students who were here on green cards and visas. And I don't know why they thought I was going to provide any intelligence, or if he was just told to question me and he had to cook up some kind of scenario under which he could, engage with me. And then I was just out of there. It was very weird. Returning from Iran, I was not subjected to a secondary interview, but what's been happening to American colleagues of mine, journalists, scholars who have been to Iran in the past, is that the FBI will show up to their house and seek to question them as witnesses of other cases in other cases. And like the cases remain mysterious. There's a author who runs a group called If Americans Knew, named Allison Weir, who lives in the Bay Area. And she was approached by the FBI a few months ago. She wrote about it. So it's like, you never know when they're going to come for you on anything Iran related. But again, I mean, I have nothing to hide, and I was prepared for that scenario. And I think like anyone watching this, if you're traveling abroad, you should just be prepared to be harassed, interrogated, and you don't have the same constitutional rights when you are in secondary screening at an airport. It's considered a legal gray zone. And what they can do is give you the option of them taking your passport, and they say temporarily we'll hold it, but they could hold it for years, and you will not be allowed to leave the United States. You'll be a prisoner in your own country unless you surrender your devices. And so you have to give them your devices, and then they'll copy all the data off your devices if it's there. So the way to prepare for that is, you don't bring your primary phone with you. Don't bring your primary laptop with you. And also know that when you're talking to them, they just could take notes and misinterpret anything you say and use it against you at a later time. So what is the point of getting into a long philosophical conversation or political conversation with an agent of the federal government? Don't do it. But at the same time, if you refuse to speak to them, they might be more likely to treat you harshly. So it's something that I think everyone has to be prepared for at this point, and especially with the Trump administration casting a wider net, being more political. And I was prepared for it. I am prepared for it. And, everything I do is just journalism. It's public. So, if anyone wants to know anything about what I do, just follow me on social media or read my work, watch my videos. I tried to show as much as I could of anything, politically relevant or interesting that I did in Iran.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We've watched a number of movies like this where people will have a burner phone, and it's just, now I'm thinking about things that I've seen in multiple movies, and I'm like, hey, that would be a bad idea. But that's a good point. It's crazy that it's even come to this though, that people should even have to worry about that. But you really have to be careful. And it's some of the things that Hassan Piker said to the authorities, I would never encourage people to say that.
Yeah, I don't know. He got into some 2-hour conversation with them and was like, I just told them I want to end the bloodshed. And it's just like, what is the point? Yeah. And it should have never happened in the first place. But I don't know if you've interviewed Richard Medhurst. If you haven't, you should. but he's someone who is facing prosecution in the UK for his journalism. The UK is going insane on journalists. They just dropped charges against our colleague Asa Winstanley from the Electronic Intifada, whose house was raided and devices were taken. They just dropped all the charges against him. But Richard Medhurst is still facing charges. And he was also raided in Vienna. And the Viennese or Austrian authorities accused him of actually being a member of Hamas, which is just insanity. He's an alternative media commentator. Anyway, I just learned he just announced that he's going to publish a book on digital security. And so that is a must read. And one of the things he did that has led the British authorities to prosecute him is he took his phone and uploaded something called Graphene OS, the Graphene operating system, which was recommended by Edward Snowden. And it basically de-Googleizes your phone. You can do it on a Google Pixel 6 or above. There's a GitHub site on how to install it. And, it's a pretty intensive process. But once you do that, once the police sees your phone or the Fed sees your phone, they can't get in there. And so they were so frustrated that they couldn't get in his phone that they are prosecuting him for that, for actually securing himself. Anyway, anyone who wants to really up-level their digital protection, learn about Graphene OS.
Very interesting. One more question for you, Max. This is a good one. Thank you, Denver Thug. For Max, when do you think Zionism will finally fall? You're the best, by the way.
Thank you. I look at the announcement today by the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, that Israel is expanding settlements in the West Bank more than it has for the last 20 years as an announcement by Israel that there is no diplomatic off-ramp. There is no possibility of a peaceful solution. So they are foreclosing the possibility of anything but a military resolution. And that means we're going to look at something like Algeria on steroids. And that hasn't happened yet. Israel is militarily unchallenged right now by all forces except Ansar Allah. You can see what they've been able to do with just a few ballistic missiles, which are usually intercepted. They have forced many airlines to pull out of Israel. They have disrupted life in Israel. And what they're doing is creating pressure for Israel to end the genocide in Gaza. They're the only force doing it. But I don't see Zionism falling on the horizon until there is more of that kind of pressure, because because Israel only understands force. I wish it were otherwise. I wish that diplomatic pressure would work. However, by the same token, Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar, said that if the West, and particularly the US and Germany, suspended arms shipments to Israel, enacted an arms embargo, Israel would collapse. He said that, sort of threatened the world with a great time. So there is actually a political means, but the West isn't going to go there for reasons we all understand, at least in the near term. So I think we're in for some hard years. I say years, even though there may have been a 60-day ceasefire agreed to by Hamas and Israel. I don't think any ceasefire will hold. I don't think after October 7th, there will be like these years-long periods where there's no fighting. I think we're looking at continuous warfare until Zionism reaches its terminal phase. And there's going to be so much damage between now and then. Damage not just in the region, but damage to our own society, the kind of damage we're witnessing on campuses, to our constitution, where Israel's vast lobbying apparatus and the Zionist movement will just destroy everything in their wake in order to hold on. So it's coming. And, honestly, for the past 18 months, it's been hard to stay sane, but we've got more coming.
I know. It feels like we're in a nightmare that we can't wake up from.
Yeah,
Like
the only way out seems to be to just stop paying attention.
Right. That's what it feels like. Like I feel like I've been in a nightmare for like, I don't know, since 2023, and we can't wake up from that nightmare.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really the nightmare that began in 1948. Or you could say it's the nightmare that began with the Holocaust in Europe. I mean, I see this as some kind of spiritual perpetuation of the Holocaust against Palestinians for simply being in the way. So with the end of Zionism, it's the end of the rules-based order. It's the end of the post-World War II order, and something else will come into being, but we're not there yet. We're not ready for it, but billions of people around the world are just yearning for it, yearning for an end to this nightmare.
I agree.
And there is a sea change in opinion. I mean, they've lost. So there's no soft power left for Zionism outside of like these hermetic communal circles of very racist right-wing Jews and Christians. There's no soft power left. I mean, you can look at this letter that went out of like 300 pretentious intellectual liberal intelligentsia figures, including Zadie Smith, where they finally called it genocide. Yeah. Zadie Smith is the writer who published like this incomprehensible, pretentious word salad in the New Yorker almost a year ago today that called Palestine solidarity activism on college campuses weapons of mass destruction and pined for the feelings of Jewish students. A year later, it's like public opinion has shifted so much that she signed on with 300 intellectuals who have been silent so far and condemned what Israel's doing as genocide. And the Washington Post has just published an op-ed declaring, yes, it's genocide.
Yep.
I mean, it's over.
They all got the green light though, Max. Now it's okay to say it, right? Just like same thing with Piers Morgan. Now it's okay for him to say you guys are killing children and you're starving children after so many people, including Aaron from the Gray Zone. So many people went on the Piers Morgan show with solid evidence and facts to explain that to him even a year or so ago. Like they all
that's true. And it really speaks to their moral cowardice or just their amorality, that they're just a bunch of sociopaths who will go any way that celebrity demands they go, for sure. But Netanyahu and the Israeli leadership made this bargain where they were going to continue shredding children, and they commanded a society of psychopaths who have no shortage of appetite to continue shredding children and pressing drone buttons to destroy entire families. And they made this bargain that they would continue doing that rather than diplomatically end the slaughter and engage in some kind of hostage captive deal. And by making that bargain, because for all sorts of reasons, Netanyahu doesn't want to lose his coalition. Israeli society is primed for genocide. For all these reasons, they created a scene of bloodshed that was so ghastly that even Piers Morgan and even the most vacuous, pretentious, cowardly liberal intellectuals and the Washington Post neocon editorial board had to finally cave to the pressure that we were creating from day one and declare that it's genocide. And so it's sort of consolidated a consensus around the reality that Israel is committing genocide and that it is essentially a genocidal project. So our job is to continue to move the consensus, understanding that we're working within a largely apathetic, mesmerized, zombified society, and that the influencers that we're dealing with are generally sociopathic with some special exceptions. We have more power than we did on October 6, 2023. We have more eyeballs than we did on our shows, more ears. And so we can continue to move the consensus, and we need to move it towards a consensus against Zionism, a recognition that Zionism is unacceptable in the modern civilized world, and that it must be declared at the United Nations again, a form of racism. We have to move beyond just the genocide debate to Zionism itself. And that will happen. That will happen as long as Israel engages in this satanic project. And I don't see it stopping.
Well, Max, thank you so much for your time. I see you guys are also growing really well at the Gray Zone too.
We're growing. I'm hoping to produce more content, and let's keep collaborating, because I think the symbiosis is working out well.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Max.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace.
All right, guys, that was Max Blumenthal. I hope you enjoyed that. We have 4 news stories that I do want to cover as well, and we will do call in tonight after the show. Tonight's theme is This Actually Happened. That's the theme tonight. So let's get to some of the comments and we'll go through the thumbnail. Thank you, Megan, who's been a member for 4 months. Megan says, doobie doobie doo. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Here's for your next workout and bench press PR, Sabby. We'll catch the rerun. Max is great. Thank you, guys. I was just on Kyle's show the other day, so check that out. Liberty and Health. Thank you, Marvin. Max, you will be able to get Iranian rabbi to come on GZ, to come on Gray Zone. I can ask him about that. Thank you, JJ. Evening, Sabby. I'm listening while at work. Can you whistle while you work? Thank you, Marvin. You see any pro-Palestine protest marches? Yeah, we've covered them on here. I don't know if you've seen them, Marvin, but yeah. Thank you, Roger. It might be because his dad, why they don't hold Max. Thank you for this one. Graphene comes from hemp. Shout out to Holy Crap, Blueser. Jesus Christ. Thank you so much. That is very generous donation. Thank you both. Thank you, Blueser. Thank you, Marland. The only threat to power is the threat of losing power. If the 95% register as independent, the powers that be will truly pause and take notice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's get the comment on Rockfin, and then we'll go to the thumbnail here and the patrons. Thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin. Laura Baza says, love Max. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what else are we discussing tonight? Again, we will do call in after the show where you can call and we can chat. Tonight, of course, Max Blumenthal was just here discussing his trip in Iran. We're also going to discuss Obama loses shine. New information here that's coming out about Barack Obama. And yeah, you know, he cares a lot about his legacy, so he's not going to be happy to hear about that article. We're also going to discuss, this is a big one, and I'm seeing split opinions on this. We're going to talk about this pardon from Donald Trump. Now, this is a pardon for a former Chicago gang member. We're going to get into all of that. Do people approve of it? And if you don't approve of it, is it because he's not a part of your party or et cetera? We're going to get into it. We're also going to discuss, this is insane. Fox guest goes nuts. That guy that you see there in the green square, that is Leo Terrell. This guy never looks happy. Never. I never see a happy smile on this guy's face. And last but not least, Elon leaves the Trump team. So Elon is out. That's right. The theme tonight again is This Actually Happened. Let's give a shout out to everyone who is a patron, and we'll dive into the next story. Bam. Thank you to everyone who's a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. We have Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. Don't forget about those Sabbies as well. And we also have a group called Members. All of their names are listed here, and you can see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much. And I want to give a shout out here to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. What's up? Let's give it up for Paulette. Paulette. Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome. All right. Let's go ahead and dive into the first news story here, folks. If you haven't done so, smash the like. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. This first story here. Okay, so it looks like the honeymoon period between Elon Musk and Donald Trump has finally come to an end. And Elon Musk has now announced that he is officially leaving the Trump administration. There seems to be a little bit of anger on Elon's side, not too happy about Donald Trump's GOP big spending bill after the work that he did with Doge. First and foremost, let's go ahead and get into his comments here, slamming Donald Trump's spending bill. Check it out.
Overnight, Elon Musk criticizing the president's massive spending bill, said he was disappointed to see it. Let's go to Capitol Hill. Correspondent Jay O'Brien with the latest. Good morning, Jay.
Yeah, Michael, good morning. President Trump has been adamant he wants Republicans united behind his mega bill, full of a laundry list of campaign promises. But one top ally is still not on board this morning, Elon Musk. Overnight, President Trump's biggest ally coming out against his recent legislative victory.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
Billionaire Elon Musk, who pledged to take a step back from politics, slamming the president's bill, which was pushed through the Republican-led House.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
For days, Musk has hinted at his discontent with the GOP bill, but his latest comments underscoring division within the Republican Party over their own signature legislation. The massive budget bill includes billions to renew construction of the border wall, along with billions more for defense spending and an extension of Trump's 2017 tax cuts.
This is where the money goes, ladies and gentlemen. It goes to items like this and also, of course, to defense, but not to healthcare. Let that sink in.
Which government estimates find will increase the deficit by nearly $4 trillion over 10 years. But the bill also makes significant cuts, slashing SNAP food assistance and making changes to Medicaid that could lead to more than 8 million Americans losing their insurance, according to early estimates. Now, Trump's massive legislative package is now in the hands of the Senate, where Republicans are expected to make significant changes and then send it back to the House. So the GOP infighting over this bill is far from over, Robin.
All right.
Okay, so Elon Musk obviously was not happy about that bill. He basically feels like, well, this kind of goes against what I was trying to do with Doge. We're supposed to be trying to cut back spending, which Doge was a joke anyway. And here you are with this massive bill that is going to create more spending. Kind of seems like a slap in my face, right? So this is Elon's sentiment, but it's not just that. The reality is there has been tension between Donald Trump's administration, the other staffers, and of course, Elon Musk. It seems like every article that we've been reading, a lot of people just seem to have problems with Elon. People are having problems with him. He doesn't seem to know. He has no filter. That's what it is. He doesn't have a filter. He is basically took advantage of a situation that was, I guess, a position that was offered to him. And all of a sudden it was like he thought that he was King Elon. And it's really been pissing people off. Like not just Democrats, but people that are part of the Trump administration. They had issues with Elon Musk. So yeah, this just happened. Now he announces that he is donezo, fam.
It's now official. Elon Musk is leaving his role as a special government employee in the Trump administration, with a White House official confirming to me tonight that he's going to start the offboarding process this evening, which essentially includes paperwork. It's not totally clear what else. But we did see Musk post this on his own website saying, as my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I'd like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The Doge mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout government.
So let's pause here. So the exit here, it seems professional, right? So the exit seems professional, but at the same time, this is really a laugh. It's hilarious because it's like, you guys went on this whole tirade about how you were starting this Doge project and you're going to cut back on spending. And basically what you did is you cut jobs, like people lost federal jobs, right? That we talked about before. And then now you have this bill that Donald Trump tries to push through Congress, which is actually massive amounts of spending. So you're spending more money after you told people there's too much money being spent. People lost their jobs because you said there's too much money being spent. And here goes more money that's being spent. But you're cutting funds when it comes to things like, Medicare and SNAP benefits, but you have money for other things. So yeah, it makes Doge laughable. It makes it a joke. And at this point, like I said before, Elon should have never been a part of this administration to begin with. He should have just stuck to what he was doing. Try to get X working right, okay? Fix X first, because X has had a number of issues, especially over the past couple of weeks. Get that done. I don't know. How about let Tesla employees have the option to join a union or unionize? Things like that. There is no reason why he needed to be a part of that administration, but he donated a lot of money, and that's how he got there. Money talks. So now it's almost like he has egg on his face.
This is all coming as Musk has recently tried to distance himself from the administration to a degree, including when he criticized the president's big, beautiful bill, something the president was asked about today and essentially shrugged off.
Well, reactions, a lot of things. Number one, we have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting. We need to get a lot of support, and we have a lot of support. We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have.
Here's what Elon Musk had to say about that bill, which the Congressional Budget Office has estimated would add more than $3 trillion to the federal deficit.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing. I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
So this part right here, right? So obviously it goes against what Doge was supposedly, what it was supposed to be for. But I got to say something here about this budget and this deficit, because this is important to say. And I'm trying to see if I can get Steve Grumbine to come back on the show to have a deep dive again about MMT, because here's the thing. The whole idea of a debt ceiling is a myth. And this is something that I had to learn along the way. I first heard about this, I think it was 3 years ago now, that I learned about MMT, which is modern monetary theory. This whole idea that we have, oh my God, we have this deficit ceiling. We cannot go above this ceiling. It's right here, this threshold. This is all a myth. Did you know that the government can actually mint a coin? The government can mint a coin and spend it as they want to. And the interesting part about this, when I talked to Fadil Kaboub about this, who's also very knowledgeable about MMT, I did ask him, do politicians in DC, are they aware of modern monetary theory? Are they aware that the government can just mint a coin? And Fadil Kaboub said, well, yes, I know for one, Ro Khanna knows about this, but you never hear them talk about it. You never hear them talk about this. They're all aware of this. This is all a distraction, folks. This whole idea that oh my God, we're in trillions of dollars of debt. We have a debt ceiling and we're over this amount. It's ridiculous. And when you learn about MMT, then you start to see that this is a joke. The government prints money as it always has. So even the whole discussion around the budget and the deficit, et cetera, they're not being honest with you. They're not telling you the full story. They're not telling you about MMT. And a lot of economists know about this as well. So Elon is out. He is departing. And I don't know what Elon's going to do, but I think Elon just needs to stay out of politics. Get out of that. Stay out of that. You got the things that you wanted. I'm sure he got some of the government contracts that he wanted. He was able to bring over some Afrikaners from South Africa here. What he wanted. That was his way of hitting back at South Africa, the president of South Africa. So you got what you wanted, but just stay out of politics. Period. A mess. We'll go on a little bit more here.
My personal opinion.
My source on all of this tonight is the veteran tech journalist, Kara Swisher. And Kara, it's great to have you here. What do you make of Elon Musk officially leaving his role that he is tonight?
Well, it's a long goodbye, isn't it? I mean, he seems to be leaving and going out. He needs to work on his company. This was inevitable that he was not going to stay there very long. And it pushed along by the fact that his businesses are a bit in distress. And so he needs to pay attention and do his actual job.
Do you think he's actually leaving?
I think he's probably frustrated by the pace of government. And when he goes back to his companies, he says jump and they say how high. At the government, they don't do that. And I think he found a lot more difficulty in finding real cuts and everything else. And I think they're only sending $9 billion in Doge cuts which is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket, which means pretty much his effort was a failure.
Yeah, that's what they're planning to say.
And there it is, folks. It was a failure. And it was a waste of time. It was a waste of his time. And it was a waste of your time. This is all a joke. Jokety joke. You know, looking back on it, maybe it was a good thing that Vivek got away from this as quickly as he could, because there were issues there, obviously, between, with Elon and Vivek and the rest of the Trump administration as well. But it's probably a good thing looking back on it that he was able to get as far away from this as possible. Here's the thing. People don't like to fail. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to fail today. That's not how things work. And then Elon Musk, who is on his way to apparently becoming a trillionaire, you think he wants to fail? You think he's happy about this? Not only did you fail, it's one thing to try to, let's start a business here and it doesn't work out. That's not all over the news. You failed in government. You failed on the world stage, and you put yourself out there like a clown, thinking that you were king in the White House. And it's embarrassing. So hopefully he'll go back to whatever the hell it was he was doing before and just stay out of politics. Period. That's what I hope happens.
End up to the hill based on what we know so far. But I mean, $9 billion might sound like a ton of money to someone who's watching. But when you think about his stated goal of $1 trillion to cut coming in,
$2 trillion at first,
$2 trillion initially, then that was halved to be more realistic.
Yeah,
I think that puts it more in perspective of how much there was this high bar that they did not reach.
No, it's what they spent on paper clips. I mean, it's really not a lot, and he didn't find it. He was able to do it because he made cuts in particular areas, some of which were regulating him, like foreign budgets, maybe attack NPR, attack things like that. But it wasn't significant cutting that they were talking about, which is reforming government extensively. And as he correctly pointed out, you can't have a bill that's big and beautiful. You can have one or the other. And Musk can do math, I think, and he understands the deficit. This $2.3 billion or more raising the deficit is very dangerous for this country, which was something I think he genuinely wanted to help fix.
These people are all actors. All actors, folks. Yeah, I don't think Elon Musk really cares, like in that sense. I think he has a big ego. I think he likes a lot of attention. And I think he's just looking for other ways to, again, make more money for himself, because it's never enough. No matter how much these billionaires make, it's never enough to make more money for himself and to have more government contracts for his businesses. So I think that's what this is really about. He got what he wanted. Now he's out of there. Don't come back. Hit the road, Jack. Don't come back. You guys can sing the song with me. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you so much, Louise Brooks, who's been a member for 20 months. Please tell me you have seen Sinners. I have. Brilliant and all the things. We all need a mental break from G-Side. Yes, I saw Sinners. I thought it was amazing. I just think Ryan Coogler is a fantastic director. I've seen all of his movies and I like all of them. I think he's great. And I think him and Michael B. Jordan have a great collab together. They work well together. Thank you, Mark. Demand number 2, healthcare for all. That's right. I see you looking at 11 demands. Thank you, Marlon. The rich giving to the rich bill. Right. And thank you, Juzun. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. MMT would be nice, except for the fact that we have to pay interest on the debt to capitalist bondholders because of the criminal Federal Reserve. You know what, Juzun? You bring up an interesting point there. I'm going to see, again, I'm reaching out to Steve Grumbine to see if we can bring him back on because it's time to have this conversation again about MMT. Thank you, Marlon. The debt ceiling is only mentioned when they're asked to do something for the people who voted for them. Ding, ding, ding. All of a sudden, when it comes to defense, the defense budget, there's no debt ceiling mentioned. Thank you, Tim, though. Elon, take your 65 kids and 39 baby mamas and bounce. Let's get the comment on Rockfin. Oh, man, that's bad. Thank you so much, Dave, for the tip on Rockfin. Thanks, Sabs and Eric, for getting out there, interviewing some of the major dissident known voices. /comment. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is something happening? What is this? Fine Weather says, cool, big sub, Sabs, and you don't beg for it like Kyle. Did I miss something? Oh, well. I mean, I'm on StreamYard, so I can't see. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay, we have to drop the beats. We have to drop the beats. Can we? Okay. We're going to drop the beat. Yeah, because see, I stream with StreamYard, so I can't see. I don't know what YouTube looks like, right? Guys, I think we hit 200,000 subscribers. That's what Eric is telling me. That's what everybody's telling me. Yes. Wow. I think we gotta drop the motherfucking beats. I think we gotta drop the beats. Let's go. Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. Oh, snap! Yeah! Woo! Let's go! Woo! Oh my gosh! Thank you guys so much! Wow! Holy crap! That's a lot, guys. Holy smokes. Eric is showing it to me now. Wow. Wow. There it is. Holy crap, man. Well, thank you. Thank you guys so much. There it is right there. It must have happened when I went live. But thank you. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate that. Wow. Holy crap. Damn. Bump and bounce. More bounce to the ounce. All right. Well, now we're moving on to something else. We can chat a little bit about it on call-in. I'm going to try to stay on time so we can start calling on time. So here we go. This next story, we have to have a little bit of comedy, right? Jeez Louise. So Leo Terrell, he was a civil rights attorney. He was a Democrat. He left the Democratic Party and he decided to become a Trump supporter, right? A Republican, but more so he gravitated towards Donald Trump. Now, I'm not shaming him for leaving the Democratic Party. I think people should leave the Democratic Party, but I don't think you should go to the Republican Party, right? I think people need to leave both parties. But ever since Leo decided to become a Trumper and join along with the Republican Party, Leo Terrell, all of a sudden, everything that he worked for before in the past, he just wants to put that aside. And he really has become Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks. Now, Leo Terrell is basically sounding the alarm that they're going to come after everybody. He is going to come after everybody who is critical of Israel. Now, this is a black man, and he has more anger towards people criticizing Israel than he does towards the people he actively defended as a civil rights lawyer in the past. Watch the passion that he has in his voice. Check this out.
With a special guest, let's go deeper on the effort by President Trump to protect Jewish Americans, particularly college students. The Trump administration says Harvard University has failed to comply with its demands to rid the Ivy League campus of anti-Semitism and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So far, President Trump has stripped Harvard of nearly $3 billion in funding. His administration is now fighting to stop the school from enrolling any more foreign students. Here's Harvard's president.
I would say that we need to be firm in our commitments to what we stand for. And what we stand for, I believe I speak for other universities, is education, pursuit of the truth, helping to educate people for better futures.
Now, let me just pause here because this guy right here, right? Alan Garber, this is the guy that replaced former Harvard University president Claudine Gay, right? Like she was pushed out originally by Bill Ackman, who was pushing for her to get out of there because of the pro-Palestinian protest on Harvard's campus. So they got her out of there. They got exactly what they wanted. And they installed someone who supported Zionism. That's how you get Alan Garber. So our Alan Garber is who they wanted. Now they're pushing back against the person that they wanted in there. You know what I mean? Because apparently, according to Donald Trump and friends, Harvard has not gone far enough. They haven't gone far enough. So there's been this back and forth financial battle between the Trump administration and Harvard University, and they're trying to basically put a lot of punishments on Harvard. Now, listen, I'm not here to praise Harvard. I've had criticisms of Harvard in the past as well. That being said, with this particular situation, if Harvard falls, then the other universities fall. And then next thing you know, they're going to start going after certain businesses and calling you anti-Semitic or calling you all these different names and saying, we're going to pull funding from this, this, and this, basically, if you don't choose to kiss Israel's ass. That's really what this is about. But Leo decides to take this to a whole other ball game. And like I said, Leo don't never look happy. Every time I see Leo on a show, he always look angry, you know? And I really think Leo just wake up like that. You guys have ever seen someone that just looks angry all the time and they have like, some people used to call it resting bitch face, but they have like this angry face and it just looks like they wake up that way. I feel like Leo wakes up this way. So watch how passionate he gets about this.
For civil rights and head of the Justice Department's task force to combat anti-Semitism. A big job right now. How did we get here? Did you ever think that this would be a principal part of your job in 2025?
Not in my lifetime. How did we get here? Because we have tolerated anti-Semitism for the last 4 years. And basically the Trump administration, and thank goodness President Trump is in office, Harris, he's not going to tolerate it. He's going to eliminate it. That's why I'm in this role right now. That's why Pam Bondi's the Attorney General. And Harmeet Dillon is the civil rights head.
Leo, how?
So they grabbed a black dude to place them in this role, basically as the anti-Semitism czar. So they put this black guy in this role to basically to help Israel, right? The hell with what's going on with your community. The hell with all that. The hell that over 106,000 black women just lost their jobs. The hell with that. The hell with black people being at the bottom of the economic ladder from the beginning till now. We've been at the bottom. We stayed at the bottom. To hell with all of that. To hell with trying to enrich and uplift people in your community. I'm going to put you in a position to help people in another community. And that's going to be your sole job. Who does this? This is Leo. That's Leo for you. This is the new Uncle Ruckus. That's who he is. Womp, womp, womp.
How big is the fight, though, legally? Every time President Trump and the Trump administration take a push, now they want to see a full list of foreign students, since 27% of Harvard University's campus comes from different countries. Those students.
This is how dumb she is. 27% of international students that go to Harvard University, right? 27%. That's not even the highest amount. There are other universities that accept more international students than Harvard University does. That's why this looks so damn stupid. And she's like 27%. That's not even a high amount, okay? Okay, Faulkner? Because you always getting your stuff wrong. She was the one that didn't even know that the protesters that were at the Capitol were Jewish Voices for Peace. She said they were international people. Like, she didn't even know like who the people were. Didn't realize they were Americans, what they were a part of. This woman is a total like clown. It's a clown show, but she plays the game, and that's why she has that job. Columbia University has more international students than Harvard University. I worked at Boston University. Boston University has more international students than Harvard University. I went to grad school at Northeastern University. Northeastern University has more international students than Harvard University. But Faulkner doesn't know that. She's just a puppet too.
Students. And now a judge has temporarily blocked the right to see that list, the case on hold until this Thursday.
Trump is going nowhere. We're going to have to match them in court, Harris. This is going to be a battle in the courtroom. If it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, Trump is going to do that. That's why the Department of Justice, that's why the task force is here. 4 years ago, nothing happened. But we're going to have to file these lawsuits. We're going to have to take the money away. I want to destroy this myth by that president. Coming to school here on a student visa is a privilege.
Yes.
And he conflated the idea that somehow academic freedom, this is not academic freedom, this is anti-Semitism in its purest, most hatred form, and it's being tolerated not only on universities, but throughout the country.
Negro, please. And I have to say it that way. I thought of other ways that I could say it, but no, I really got to say it that way. People protesting against what Israel was doing is not anti-Semitism. Him being overly passionate about this, to me, is laughable within itself. Now, I don't remember Leo Terrell ever since he jumped on the Trump train. I don't remember him having this same type of passion towards, I don't know, unarmed Black people that are killed by the police. Where was that same passion? Where was that same energy after you joined the Trump train? Like I said, he was a civil rights lawyer. And then he decided that Donald Trump was going to be the answer, right? Why don't you have that same type of energy for the people within the Black community that are killed by the police with their hands in the air? Why don't you have that same type of, why don't you have this same type of energy for the hate crimes that are done against Black students on college campuses? Oh no, you guys don't hear as much about that. You know why? Because corporate media doesn't report it. You'd be surprised. And as someone worked at the universities for over 10 years, as someone who worked at these universities, you'd be surprised the number of Black students that have had hate incidents towards them, physical and verbal, and have reported it, and the universities did nothing. So no passion for that, though. Some of these people could get an Academy Award.
I can't go forward without just the sheer violence, hatred, brutality of what happened to Yaron and Sarah, that beautiful Jewish couple, on the Capitol Museum, just outside the Capitol Museum in D.C.
Pause. She not even being truthful about this, right? Didn't we already debunk this? They were Christian Zionists. Yaroff is from Germany. I mean, even ABC News got this right. She was American, but they were Christian. So you see how they're spread. Do you guys see what I mean? This is why I told you I felt like this was all a little too convenient. Because see, now they can point at them and say, oh, well, these two were da-da-da. They were Christian. They were Christian Zionists. But they are going to sell this narrative to you. Because this is insane. Insane. I can't even believe people are falling for this.
how do we get at that? Like, are we going death penalty? What really is a deterrence right now in terms of all of this? Because we've seen right here in New York City, things turn violent, not quite to that match, but you get SWAT teams showing up when some of these agitators are on campus.
We have to fight the fundamental problem. It is normal to hate Jews here. It's become popular. It's on social media.
How did that happen?
You guys see what's happening here, right? Now, you see, when people would bring this up, especially during the George Floyd protests, BLM, etc., Leo was on the other side of the argument. Leo was on the other side. He was against the people who were, this dude just against protests, but he was against the people who were saying, no, you should not, this shouldn't happen to Black people. He was on the other side. But here he is with his Uncle Ruckus self defending people of the Caucasian persuasion being the victim. So there's all this passion and this fire for people who are white minorities, white adjacent, when they are the victim. But when Black people are the victim, you were on the other side of that argument, Leo. This is the Uncle Ruckus. I don't even think Leo like himself. You know, I think Leo wake up in the morning and he probably like, damn, I really don't like myself. He don't like himself. And I don't think he really cared for Black people either. I think Leo just went with what was going to make him more money. And I think that he realized that as a Black Trump supporter, that was going to be more profitable for him. How do you go from being a civil rights attorney who see all of these things that are happening in front of you and defending those things to, yeah, don't talk about that, that's woke. Right? Because see, when Black people were coming forward about these things that were happening to us, Leo was one of the many people on Fox News that says, I'm tired of this left wokety woke. It's woke. I'm tired of the identity politics. When it was about Black people, he was tired of the identity politics. Again, I don't think Leo even like himself. But now all of a sudden, that you're part of this Trump administration, now all of a sudden that the victim is of the white persuasion, now all of a sudden, it's okay to talk about identity. Knock on the door, ring the bell, tell your friends, tell your family members, all the people who pointed their fingers at you when you brought up these issues, when they were happening to Black people and they were happening to other minority groups, and they said, no, I don't want to talk about that. That's wokety woke. That's identity politics. All of a sudden, when it's about a certain group of people, it's no longer identity politics. This is how you catch people in their bullshit. It was never about identity politics. It was about the fact that you were championing for the wrong identity. They didn't want you to defend those people. People like Leo, Uncle Ruckus.
It's not popular.
I'll tell you why. Because for 4 years, nothing was done to stop it in its tracks. And now it's been allowed to fester. And what happened last Friday? I went last Thursday with those two Israeli staffers. I was at the crime scene. I went to the embassy. It was horrific because this type of conduct should never be tolerated. And it's being tolerated only because of what did not occur for the last 4 years. We should have stopped it.
Are you worried about the justice system having too many liberal judges or reputations of being liberal?
Well, it's not a reputation. It's a fact. There are too many judges who are impeding progress, who are eliminating anti-Semitism. For example, that judge who stopped President Trump's demand for information from Harvard is ridiculous. It's going to be overturned. It's going to go to the Supreme Court, but it delays the process. But Trump is not going to be deterred.
So set up the...
I'm going to show you who Leo really is, right? Like, there's no way this guy believes this. There's no way he believes himself. This is who Leo really is. That's him right there, Uncle Ruckus. If you've never seen the show The Boondocks, watch The Boondocks. You'll know what I'm talking about. But Uncle Ruckus is a character on The Boondocks who's Black, who has convinced himself that he's not Black because his mom told him that he wasn't Black. He has some type of skin disease. Uncle Ruckus was Black. Long story short, Uncle Ruckus hates Black people. He's black, but he don't like black people. He loves white people and will do whatever he can to defend white people. That's the character on the show of The Boondocks. By the way, it's a great show. I wish it didn't end. The Boondocks was freaking phenomenal. Very clever. But this is Leo right now. Hey, you can hear the music coming in. Womp, womp, womp. Womp, 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 womp. That's the Uncle Ruckus music when he would appear on the screen. That's him. That's Leo. You got all this energy for white people, white minorities. We got to protect them. We got to save them. You didn't have that energy for black people that were being killed. None of that. In fact, you said it was woke. Wokety woke woke. This whole fight back and forth, this battle here with Harvard is a total distraction. This is Donald Trump coming after Harvard University. They're doing this as a personal thing against Harvard. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And Leo is a waste of space.
Legal fight now going forward, because it won't just be Harvard.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. Let me tell you right now, I want everyone to understand this. Unlike the previous administration, expect massive lawsuits against UC systems who still practice on the East Coast, on the West Coast, in the Midwest. Expect hate crime charges filed by the federal government. Expect Title VII lawsuits against those individuals who are not being protected simply because they're Jewish. This is going to stop. We've got a full front of activity in the courtroom. We're going to meet them in court. And one other fact that I cannot disclose, we are going to go after them where it hurts them financially. And there's numerous ways. I hope you can read between the lines. There's numerous ways to hurt them financially.
Yeah. And I, you and I will talk in the future, hopefully soon, as those things start to roll out. We can talk on the record about them. I do want to say,
two sellouts, basically, as it is. So that's him to instill fear into people. We're going to go after you financially because you protested against the state of Israel. Man, please get out of here. Get out of here. We're going to go after you. We're coming for you guys. This is a Hulk Hogan moment. We're coming for you, brother. That's just to scare you. And get out of here. Because there's ways to go after them financially, too. You can sue them just as if they try to sue you. You can sue them. What a nut job. Again, yeah, that actually happened. Psycho. Let's go to one of the comments on Rockfin. All right. Thank you, Roger, for the tip on Rockfin. Yes, Sab, that'd be us. That'd be U.S. Code 31, Section 5111 of the Constitution that grants power to the Treasury Department to make coins of any denomination and assign a value to it. Congress has the same power as the first enumerated power and located Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5 of the Constitution. They are currency issuers. They can simply cancel the debt in the Fed. Why did the government regulate currency issuing to Fed? And thank you for this one. Establish a network of public banks to create surpluses at state and local level, then create state versions of federal social programs to fill the gap between cost of living and what you get from the federal government when these things happen. There you go. All right, let's go to some of the comments here and we'll go to the next story. We're making great time, ladies and gents. Thank you, Sparky. Fun fact, both Ukraine and Israel have taxpayer-funded healthcare. American taxpayers. Thank you, Kimi. Hey, let's go. 200K. Thank you, Kimi. Kimi's been a member for 7 months. Thank you, Andrew. Congrats on 200K subscribers, Sabby. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks, Shane. Grats. Let's go, Sabs. Thank you. Sparky. Great work, Sabby. Congratulations on 200K. Thank you. No name only. I've been watching your show since 50K subscribers. Love your show, Sabby. Thank you, no name. Thank you, Tobin. Congrats, well earned for being the real news to the people. Thanks, Jay. Congrats on the 200K sub, Sabby. You deserve it and then some. And thank you, Lorez. 200K, Sabby, Eric, Corey, well-deserved, never change. Thank you. Thanks, Marlon. 200K, congratulations, Sabby. Thank you. Thanks, TJ. Yes, so proud of you. Well earned for keeping it real. Thanks, Wandy. Congrats, 200K subscribers. Thank you. Max Fiend says, OMG, I was thinking he reminded me of a TV character, but I couldn't think of who. Thanks, Tim, who's been a member for 6 months. Sabby, I'm going to Home Depot to get you some nails. You still haven't put up your 100K YouTube plaque. Congrats on 200K and welcome to all the newbies. Yes, I have the nails. I did buy nails. I bought them. I got them from the hardware store. I just have to nail them into the wall. I'm making steps, Tim. Thank you, Shane. Thank goodness for H. White Jesus, Donald J. Trump, so we can save Israel. Thank you, Fuzzy Balls. The evil empire is Star Wars is just a metaphor for the American government. Need to look no further than Central America, Africa, the Middle East, the former Yugoslavia, and our clueless proxy, Ukraine. Thank you, VS Need. Sabby, don't you know that it's the USI, the United States of Israel? It's also swiftly becoming the AUS, Apartheid United States, too. There you go. Shout out to AB for being a member for 3 months. Does he and Stephen A go to the same barber? Oh, I wasn't even going to go there about the hairline. I wasn't even going to go there, AB. Thanks, Shane. How did that happen? Because they started unaliving everyone and everything that moves too. And thank you, Marlon. Hard to watch these disingenuous defenders of genocidal maniacs. I agree. Thanks, Fuzzy Balls. America's time as the world's bully has passed. Russia and 18,000 sanctions placed on them has removed fear for other nations. Sadly, America's wrath is now exclusively directed at we the people. I believe ya. Okie dokie. We're moving on to the next story. If you haven't done so, folks, do me a solid and smash the like. And we're moving on. Here's another one. This actually happened. There was a prisoner in Chicago, a Chicago gangster. His name is Larry Hoover. He has been in jail for years. And believe it or not, Donald Trump just decided to commute his sentence. Now, this is a big story that a lot of people are talking about. People have mixed opinions about it. Some people feel like he should not be released. Others say that he served, his time, enough time. He's like 74 years old. Let him go. What do you think about this? Let's get into this story. Again, Donald Trump commutes the sentence of Chicago gangster Larry Hoover.
The former lead prosecutor in Larry Hoover's federal case reacting this afternoon with disappointment, telling us there are just some offenders and crimes that are not deserving of clemency, and Hoover falls in that category. But this afternoon, President Trump disagreeing, commuting Hoover's 6 life sentences on federal convictions to time served. Hoover still faces, however, a 200-year state sentence on a 1973 murder conviction, so it appears he won't be getting out of prison, at least in the near term. It was while behind bars serving time for that murder that federal prosecutors say he continued overseeing the Chicago Gangster Disciples, a gang that he co-founded. And in 1997, he was convicted of running a criminal enterprise. But Hoover's attorney says over the years, Hoover has been rehabilitated and written numerous letters talking about his experience, how he turned to crime, and the good he can do in steering young people away from a similar fate.
He is being held because he is a symbol, not because he needs further incarceration or he hasn't been rehabilitated. He's been a model prisoner for many, many years. He's been examined. He has been determined to be no risk.
If Larry Hoover said there was going to be a killing, there was a killing. If Larry Hoover said there was going to be a beating, there was a beating. If Larry Hoover said there was going to be a drug deal, there was a drug deal.
Hoover's case has drawn the attention of a number of advocates and public figures, including Chance the Rapper and Kanye West. Hoover is currently serving time in Colorado, but with that state sentence, he'll likely be moved at some point to a prison in Illinois.
So let's talk about this for just a second. So number one, he's not fully pardoned. So Donald Trump commuted his federal sentence, but he did not commute. The president can't pardon like the state charges, right? So only the governor can do that. So that will put the ball in the governor's court. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's look at a little bit about what Larry Hoover did, because I know people are asking about this. Yes, I'm using Wikipedia. Don't make fun of me. Okay. So Larry Hoover is serving 6 life sentences at ADX Florence Prison Facility in Colorado. He was previously sentenced to 150 to 200 years for a 1973 murder. However, in 1997, following a 17-year investigation, he was convicted of conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, and running a continuing criminal enterprise from state prison, and received another life term. He has made multiple attempts to have his sentence shortened. And then, of course, it adds that Donald Trump just commuted his federal prison sentence here. Some of the people who have advocated for Larry are Kanye West. I'm sorry, I said Kanye West. Kanye West, also Chance the Rapper, which you'll see in just a second. We'll get into a little bit more of that in the other video. Now, let's get into what happened when he was arrested here. Let's make sure. I'm sorry, I have to. Here we go. 1973. February 26, 1973, William Pookie Young, a 19-year-old neighborhood drug dealer, was abducted and shot dead in an alley near 68th Street and Union Avenue in Inglewood, a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. His killing was ordered by Hoover after his name was mentioned as one of 3 people accused of stealing drugs and money from the gang 6 days earlier. Andrew Howard was arrested on March 16, 1973, while Hoover went into hiding in Chicago. On September 21st, 1973, Hoover was driving a stolen truck and was asked to stop for a traffic violation. He tried to run away from the scene, but was arrested. The police also discovered that he was also wanted in William Young's murder. In October of 1973, Howard and Hoover were both indicted for murder, and in December were sentenced to the 150 to 200 years in prison. Hoover was sent to Stateville Correction Center in Crest Hill, Illinois. Now, his family members are speaking out. And again, for him to be fully pardoned, that means that the governor would have to drop the state charges or pardon those charges. Let's hear what his family has to say.
Larry Hoover is currently at the notorious Supermax prison in Colorado. His family hasn't been able to speak with him today to get his reaction to his commutation. Hoover still faces the remainder of a state prison sentence for murder, but his family is hoping for clemency from Governor Pritzker.
It's overwhelming. It's a long time coming, and we just want to hope it go all the way through.
The wife and son of Larry Hoover, after his 6 federal life sentences, were commuted by President Trump.
And he deserves redemption. He deserves a second chance at being a part of this community.
So that's his wife, Larry Hoover's wife, and that's his son.
He could be a benefit to this community if they want him to be a benefit to this community.
Hoover co-founded the Chicago Gangster Disciples, and while behind bars for a 1973 murder, federal prosecutors say he continued to run the gang's prolific multi-state drug operations.
If Larry Hoover said there was going to be a killing, there was a killing.
Ron Safer was the lead federal prosecutor who secured Hoover's 1997 conviction for running a criminal enterprise behind bars.
I believe in redemption, but there are some crimes that are so horrific that they deserve the punishment to the full extent of the law.
As years passed, Hoover's case drew increasing attention, including from artists like Kanye West and Chance the Rapper.
And I gotta remind y'all that he was a political prisoner.
He is being held because he is a symbol, not because he needs further incarceration or.
That's another part too. I wanted you to hear from Chance the Rapper. Chance the Rapper said he was also a political prisoner.
He hasn't been rehabilitated.
The president's commutation only applies to Hoover's federal sentence. He still faces state prison time for which he's eligible for parole. Governor J.B. Pritzker can also offer clemency.
Pause. Let's go back to J.B. Pritzker here. So let me tell you guys something, right? Because in a way, this pushes this back in the Democrats' corner. Because here's the thing. For one, I was very shocked that Trump chose to pardon his federal charges. I was very, very shocked about that. I think it should be applauded. You guys know how I feel about the criminal justice system. You know how I feel about policing. I think it should be applauded. I think this guy has done his time. He's 74 years old, just like I was, happy about Leonard Peltier, his sentence being commuted. I'm happy about, Larry Hoover's sentence being commuted. I think it's time. People have done their time, right? And they said he's been on good behavior. That being said, in order for Larry Hoover to walk free, J.B. Pritzker has to pardon the state charges. This could possibly be a political move by Donald Trump, because if J.B. Pritzker chooses not to pardon him, then he stays in prison. And what Trump can then say to help the Republican Party, which he would probably do this, what he would then say is, I commuted Larry Hoover's sentence, and all the Democrats had to do was drop the state charges so he could walk free, and the Democrats wouldn't even let him go. That's what he would do. So now it puts the ball back in the hands of the Democratic Party, because now this story is getting a lot of attention, by the way. Now that we know the federal charges have been commuted, if you want Larry Hoover to go free, it's really in the hands of J.B. Pritzker now. So if J.B. decides not to do it, that's a strike on the Democratic Party. Here's another thing to think about. It has been alleged that J.B. Pritzker could entertain a presidential run in 2028. This is something that could come back to bite him. Something to think about. If he doesn't do what people feel is the right thing and pardon him, this could come back to bite him in a 2028 presidential run. So in my mind, I'm thinking people are just like, oh, that's really great for Donald Trump to do that. But I'm looking at the bigger picture, and to me, it feels like this is a political move as well. Because who's the governor? Something to think about.
Can also offer clemency.
We know that Governor Pritzker believes in rehabilitation, redemption, and transformation, and he's done all of that.
A governor spokesperson declined to comment on Hoover's case, but said inmates seeking parole or clemency must petition the Illinois Prisoner Review Board, which makes parole decisions and issues recommendations to the governor regarding clemency. Larry Hoover is currently at the notorious Superman.
Okay. Well, we'll have to wait and see if he is pardoned by the state, if they go forward with that. We will have to wait and see. And until then, we really don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, that actually happened. And what's interesting is you would think that more people, especially those who supported who were asking for Larry Hoover to be released, you would think that they would be in support of this. But what's going to happen, and this is the problem with political parties, what's going to happen is that people who are against the Republican Party or against Donald Trump will find a way to criticize it, even though it's the right thing to do. Something to think about. All right, let's go to the comments. We have one more story for you, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll dive into call-in. Thank you, P. Burley. New or nice subscriber numbers. You're in my top 5 too. Oh, thank you, P. And you have music notes. I love that. Talk says, what's Trump's motive? Yeah, I think it could be political. Thank you, Echo Pup. Congrats on 200K. Free Palestine. Shout out to Echo Pup's been a member for 6 months. Black Rhino said they should release him, but it won't stop them from fighting. Thank you, Eric. I'm not surprised. Look into Kim Kardashian's work with Trump. She convinced him into several pardons. This is one of Trump's few weird quirks. That's interesting. Interesting. I think she just graduated from law school too. Random, but I think that has happened. One more. We have one more story. If you haven't done so, smash the like. Thank you. We got to get to the Obama story, right? Okay. You know, Barack Obama's legacy is not going the way that he planned. And we know this is something that he cares a lot about. And you'll see that now with this new article about Barack Obama. Just as critical as people are being against, Joe Biden after Kamala lost in 2024, all of these books that are being, published about Joe Biden and what they knew, what they didn't know, and all this, and we know they all knew. There are also articles that are being written about Barack Obama and how his time is up. And there's a recent article that was written about Barack Obama where it says Obama loses his shine. Is it true? Could it be possible that a Barack Obama era, that Clinton-esque era of the Democratic Party, or just in general, has lost its steam? Let's go into this clip here first from Morning Joe. Shout out to Case Study QB for this. Obama world loses its shine in a changing, hurting Democratic Party. Let's get into it.
Following President Trump's victory last year, some Democrats are beginning to openly criticize former President Barack Obama, strategists and consultants, who, of course, have played a huge role in the direction of the party in recent years. The so-called Obama coalition, made up of less politically engaged voters, younger voters, and voters of color, largely shifted toward Trump in 2024. As NBC News notes, Obama himself remains a force in the party, filling stadiums and commanding the attention of major donors. But even the former president's luster was showing signs of fading last fall.
So the fading started to fall last fall. And we'll get into some of the things that he said that has pushed things in this direction. But the reality is the rest of the people woke up. And I'll give you an example. Barack Obama still thinks it's 2008. I feel like he thinks this when he gives speeches, when he does interviews. And what he doesn't realize is that everybody else kind of woke up. In particular, Black voters have also really woken up, right? You can see that when you look at the numbers. You can see that Kamala Harris lost the Black vote. Her numbers for Black voters is lower than Biden and Hillary Clinton. You can see that with the numbers. And of course, all of them are lower than Barack Obama's numbers with Black voters. And I think, especially what Morning Joe is not going to discuss, but I can discuss it here. The reality is that a lot of Black people had hope when Barack Obama won in 2008. And we really did think that things were going to change and things were going to improve. One term, we see, nope, he's just like the rest of them, right? Then there's a couple other things that Barack Obama did. I don't know, like bombing brown people abroad in Libya, all those drone strikes, killing all those damn kids. See, that didn't go over well then, but if that was happening today, that really, really wouldn't go well. It is a totally different time now. So the 2008 Barack Obama, that doesn't work anymore. People have woken up. Then there's the incidents where Barack Obama went to Flint, Michigan and pretended to drink the dirty water in front of the people, a room full of Black people. Because you see, what Black people saw is that, oh my gosh, we have someone that's president that looks like us, but he's not trying to help us do anything. And in fact, his policies, his economic policies actually are hurting the Black community. Think about all the Black people that lost their wealth under Barack Obama's presidency because he bailed out Wall Street instead of the homeowners. All the elderly Black homeowners that lost their homes to the predatory housing crisis in 2008. Barack Obama chose to help Wall Street instead of those people. So those predatory lending companies that targeted predominantly black homeowners, Barack Obama basically sided with them. So you see, a lot of black people woke up. And no, you may not see more black people, you maybe didn't see more black people vote third party, which I hope people would, or vote independent. But what you did see in 2024 is more black people just check out. More black people stayed home. Because you can't sit up there and dance in our face and play us like that. And you see, this is why someone like Kamala Harris and any other black candidate that comes after Obama is going to have a problem. Because we already been played. We got played by Barack Obama twice because he won twice. So people woke up and saw the game, and they know the game. And that's part of the reason why this style of politics that Barack Obama has and Barack Obama himself just does not work the way that it used to.
When the 2028 presidential election arrives, it will be 20 years since Obama's first victory. At that point, more voters will have come of age in the era of Donald Trump than in the era of Obama. And Jonathan, it's a great point. Like, first of all, there is this idea. I know there's been some resentment in the Democratic Party that Obama himself kind of only shows up at the end. He's the closer in these elections. But I think his team will push back and say, well, that's what, because he's sort of scarce, that's what makes his appearances so meaningful. So let's set that aside. But it's more about, I think some of the people who work for him have come under a lot of fire lately. But it's also, in this case, it's more about the coalition of voters he put together, which at the time, some Democrats thought, well, this could be the new permanent Democratic Party. That has clearly not been the case. It feels like those voters very quickly got taken for granted.
Well, I look back on the Obama years, and he won in 2008, but then they lost the majorities in the House and then in the Senate. It seems like when the midterms came, the Obama luster wasn't enough to push that coalition out, to bring people to the polls, to give him the majorities he needed, particularly in the second term, to be able to govern. And then when
why did that happen, Jonathan? Why did that happen? What happened in 08? What happened in those years, right? So why would people come out and support those midterm candidates when the president, who's the Democrat at this point in time, decided to turn his back on the people and bail out Wall Street? Well, why would they come out and support and help you? These are things to think about. We also need the Rahm Emanuel factor, which we'll show you as well. Rahm Emanuel, who was a part of that Obama administration, don't forget what else happened under Rahm Emanuel. This is someone who was basically the architect of NAFTA. He was a part of that. He supported and backed the Iraq War. This is all Rahm Emanuel, right? So when I say that a lot of these policies that were under Barack Obama's presidency, when I talk about how it hurt the Black community, this is the important part. This is why I continue to say you can't just focus on class. On this show, we focus on class and race because there was things that happened to the Black community under Barack Obama's presidency that did not happen to white Americans. We lost our wealth under Barack Obama's presidency. So there was a Black face that was there in the White House to convince you, to make you think that there's someone who looks like us who's going to fight for us. But he wasn't. He was there to fight for Wall Street.
When he left the White House, he and the then First Lady, Michelle Obama, were very clear to the American people and to their supporters. We have been here 8 years. We have done everything we can. It is now on you. The number one job is citizen. And I think that's why one of the primary reasons why I think President Obama has been scarce is that everyone's looking for him to save the day. And what they keep saying is, no, it's not about us, it's about you. Right. And it seems like the party can't seem to come to grips with that and deal with that. But then when you come to the staff, one of the things folks have to remember is that the Obama team were the first Democrats to be in power who weren't Clintons. And so remember, folks used to complain after the Clinton years, oh my God, the Clinton folks are running all these things and can't we get new blood? The Obama people come in, they're the new blood, and now people are starting to complain, oh my God, the Obama people, they're running everything. Some of the criticism, I think, is valid. There is, sometimes you get a sense that they think
these are all the same people. Okay. They may be separate families, but they're all one. They move as a cohesive unit. The Clintons and the Obamas, these are all the same people. How you think Barack Obama got in there? There's an agreement here. I win in 2008. Okay, Hillary, your turn is next. This is why Hillary Clinton still gets so upset that she lost in 2016, because it was basically pretty much promised to her. Do you get what I'm saying? It was like it was supposed to be her turn next. That's why they cheated Bernie Sanders, because it was supposed to be her turn. These are all the same people. And they all hang out together. Saul mentioned the Bush as well. All these people are friends. You can Google it yourself. You'll see the pictures. George W. Bush, Hillary, Bill, Michelle, Barack Obama. All of these people are friends. They're all the same group. You have elected the same person since Bill Clinton. The same part. These are the same people, same agenda. Help Wall Street, help the military industrial complex. Screw the people. All the same people. So when he says that, well, they're different. No, they're not different. And that's part of the reason of how you get here. When Biden won in 2020, that was supposed to be let's rescue the people, help the people, because we were just going through the pandemic and economically people lost jobs. People needed help. And so when Biden won, people were like, okay, this is going to be the answer. Wasn't the answer. Then under the Biden-Kamala administration, you get a war with Russia and Ukraine. You get a damn genocide. They didn't even want to increase the minimum wage. All of a sudden, they're scared of the parliamentarian. The Republican Party has no problem pushing back against the parliamentarian. So then people are like, wait a minute. You were supposed to be different. But they're not. They're both corporate. Both parties are corporate. These are the same people. And by the way, when you look at the whole Trump situation, all these people were friends with Donald Trump. A lot of the people who point fingers at him now, you can't say that about me, because I was never pro-Trump, was never friend to Trump. But a lot of these rappers, musicians, celebrities, all these people used to hang out with Donald Trump. Chuck Schumer hating Donald Trump is an act. They're buddies. They're old New York guys. They grew up together in the 70s in New York. These people all move together. You don't get there just by being a great candidate or you have a powerful speech. You get there because you know the right people and you've made agreements and you've nodded your head to the right entities so that you can get into the White House. It's all a game. Barack Obama ran on hope and change. Yes, we can. Didn't do any of that. Didn't do any of that. And I don't want to care about when he didn't have the majority. I'm talking about when he did have a majority. Didn't do any of that. The whole situation that you have with Roe v. Wade right now wouldn't have been an issue if Barack Obama would have kept his promise that he ran on to codify Roe v. Wade. The moment that he won, he decided to pull back on it and said, nope, I'm not going to do that. These people are not your friends.
They know everything. They run the world. And in some cases, you can understand it because, well, they did win 2 presidential elections. But at a certain point, that class of folks has to start listening to the next generation coming up because they have ideas. They have ways of reaching out to the voters, to men, to the Obama coalition that they just don't have they don't have the feel for it because they're not from that generation.
And to your point, I think there are many in the party that do want to see just fresh blood, new faces run the party for 2028 and beyond.
Yeah. So, and I think, there's a lot of criticism that is coming Barack Obama's way. And I think another one you need to see, because this is a nasty one. This is all connected too. Look who they're trying to prop up now, right? So check out this clip here. Weak woke, top Obama official rips the party brand. Rahm Emanuel.
Former U.S. ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, is weighing in on the Democratic Party, calling its brand toxic, weak, and woke. Emanuel told the Wall Street Journal Democrats need to pivot back to the center if they want to win elections once again, and that the party has put too much focus on so-called culture war issues that are favored by progressives. Emanuel served in both the Biden and Obama administrations and was the mayor of Chicago. Now, he appears to be considering a presidential bid or a possible run for Illinois governor.
I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys something right now. I will do everything that I can to educate my people about Rahm Emanuel to make sure that my people do not vote for him. I encourage you to do the same. I will do everything that I can. This is the same guy who covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald. They covered that up. Rahm Emanuel did in Chicago. 17-year-old boy killed by the cops. He covered it up. This is the same guy who closed 40 schools in Chicago, supported the Iraq war, is a freaking Zionist, and now he wants to run. The point is, he comes from Obama. He is a part of the Obama administration. He was also part of the NAFTA situation. Let's do NAFTA. He was the architect of the NAFTA. This is what they want you to support. And then people get mad at me and they say, oh, Sabby's telling people not to vote for the Democrats. Oh, she must be right wing. No, I'm just tired of my people not getting any goddamn thing and just settling for what the Democrats want because they're not the Republicans. The one time I did believe in 2008, I believed. Look what happened. We got Donald Trump because of Barack Obama. That's how you get a Trump. Because of Barack Obama's economic policies. Bernie ran in 2016 and 2020. I believed. And then I watched him cave over the Democrat establishment, even though he knew damn way they cheated him to his face, and he wouldn't even be man enough to admit that shit in public. So yeah, I got a problem. And I'm not one that's just going to sit up here and tell my people, oh yes, you guys should just go ahead and support them anyway because they're not the Republican Party. No. What I am here to do is I'm here to tell Black people to leave the Democratic Party and register as an independent. I'm here to tell you that no party is owed your vote, period. Let's go on.
Meanwhile, the Democratic Party is still searching for a path forward more than 6 months after President Trump swept the battleground states and won the 2024 election. A new piece from the New York Times analyzes the gradual split between the party and its traditional base, noting, quote, communities that Democrats had come to count on for a generation or more, young people, Black voters, Latinos, all veered toward the right in 2024, some of them sharply. But as the paper points out, even the attempts from the party to address these issues seems out of touch. Quote, Democratic donors and strategists have been gathering at luxury hotels to discuss how to win Black working class voters, commissioning new projects that can read like anthropological studies of people from faraway places.
This is very sad. This is very sad. The Democratic Party was taken over by Goldman Sachs, bankers, other bankers, Wall Street, military. It was just totally taken over. because they think it's a good idea to meet at luxury hotels to figure out, hey, how do we reach working class people? This was the party that at one point was the party of the working class. And this is crazy to me. How do you meet you go talk to working class? They don't even want to go talk to working class people. They want to go to a luxury hotel and sit around a table and talk about you and how to get you. But they don't even want to go talk to working class people. You see, Barack Obama and this party, they made a decision years ago that I think super PACs was a bad idea. The moment they allowed super PACs to come in, lobby interest groups to come in, it was done. We're going to do a deep dive, maybe Sunday, into how Black people became trapped inside the Democratic Party, because I don't think everyone knows the history about that, about how we became a part of it and how we basically became what was done to make sure that we would stay there. Because there's supremacy on both sides, by the way, despite what people may tell you. There's white supremacy on the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. They just keep us around because they need our votes. It's not like they actually plan to do anything for us. And yet you have some Black commentators that will tell you that I'm crazy to tell you what I just told you, because they also benefit from keeping you in the same party as well. This party, along with Barack Obama, they have moved in a direction that's really not for Black people or working class people. They ain't really looking for you. That party has become the party of academic elites, Wall Street, professional class, college educated people. That's what the party is now. If the party wasn't that, why do you have to go to a hotel and meet with people and figure out how to reach working class people? And if you've ever lived in a poor neighborhood, when's the last time a politician came to your neighborhood, knocked on your door and said, can you vote for me? They don't care because they're not trying to get your vote. And I say that to say this. We saw a big part of this downfall when Barack Obama made this statement right before Election Day. And I don't think Barack Obama was expecting to get the type of backlash that he received when he gave this statement. But this was a big turning of the tide. This speech, this demand from Barack Obama that he gave to people, basically blaming Black men for not coming out to support Kamala the way that they did for him. And I think this was when Barack Obama got his wake-up call. After he gave this speech, when people let him know, we don't give a damn what you have to say. You're not our father, and stop telling us what to do. Now, that is a different response from what was said to him in 2008. Remember this?
I'm going to go ahead and just speak some truths, if you don't mind. Yes. Because my understanding, based on reports I'm getting from campaigns and communities, is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
And that was the moment, I think, that just set things off. And, you know, a number of people heard this and they were like, whoa, hold up. Because the message that was sent across from this is that it's Black men's fault that Kamala Harris isn't doing as well in the polls as she should. But it was Barack Obama who didn't want her to run in the first damn place. Okay. So it's like, you didn't even want her to run, You wanted to have a primary, which there should have been a primary, but you didn't even want her to be the nominee in the first damn place. But here you are standing in the room and you point your finger at somebody else. This didn't go well for Barack Obama. I think this was when he got his wake-up call. We'll go on just a little bit more.
So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences, who's had to work harder and do more and overcome and achieves the second highest office in the land and is putting forward concrete proposals to directly address the things that are vital in our neighborhoods and our communities, from housing to making sure that our mothers and our fathers and our grandparents can afford medicine, and making sure that we are dealing with prices that are too high and rents that are too high and are committed to.
Yeah, he rambled on here and I guess he really tried. But the point is, the biggest mistake that he made was obviously to point his fingers at black men, but then to also say that someone who grew up like you, she didn't grow up like us. She didn't. There was that as well. And it was almost as if he was basically saying that because she has the same complexion as you, you know you should be voting for her. It's interesting because I remember some people made that decision about you, Barack Obama. When you ran in 2008, some people made that decision that they were going to vote for you because you had the same complexion and you turned out to be a complete joke. So people live and they learn, and we learned from our experience with you. But it's actually happening, folks. Now the media, corporate media, just like they're turning on Biden, are starting to turn on Barack Obama. Wait for it. All right, guys, we are going to do call in tonight. Eric's going to come on. I think we have Eric, if you can read the super chats, and I'll get the call in ready, and I'll be back.
All right. All right, so this is the part of the show where we give Sabby a little break. We're going to be transitioning over to the Zoom Hangout, formerly known as Call-In. I guess we call it the Zoom Call-In. But anyways, that's where we can hear from you all. But for the moment, you'll hear from me, Eric T. Red, coming from the background to the foreground to talk about a couple things, read some super chats, and then once Sabby sets up the Zoom Hangout room, we'll post the link, and then you can hop on in, tell us what you think. Having your camera on or off is optional, and you can talk about what we covered on the show or talk about other things. We had a great interview with Max Blumenthal that I thought was really cool. And of course, we can celebrate reaching 200K subscribers on YouTube. We can harass Sabby some more about getting that plaque up, and we'll see where the conversations go. Let me adjust the screen a little. I should be doing that. But yeah, with the whole conversation with Obama and Democratic Party and whatnot, reminds me of one of the 11 Demand Substack posts from a little while back. It was called "Settling for the Lesser Evil gets you to the greater evil." But in this, it gets into how the game is to set up two parties. Right? You have that look different and they act like they're different, but they're actually both representing the top 1%. And, but the key is, they're not weak or confused. Both parties are corrupt. And, I think that's the main thing to remember in all this. And, as far as what we do about it, I think, I think the key is that we need to be clear about our demands and have, try to build up a movement about, that's based on a clear set of demands. That's what the 11 Demands Collective is about. We'll be talking more about that later too. And but if you're interested in all that, check out 11demands.org. You can see what that's about, and also has links to like the to the Substack. There's a lot of articles, that get into all these things on the Substack. So I encourage all of you to check that out and check those out. And let's check out. We got some chats built up, so let's see what we got hanging out here. Actually, let me start with this. Let me bring this up. Yeah, let me start with this Rockfin one from Mr. Rogers. You put out on the Rockfin. Thanks for this tip comment out on Rockfin, Roger Meadows, who says the total number of federal judges appointed by past presidents, district courts, Democratic appointees 56%, Republican appointees 36%, vacancies 8%, courts of appeal Democratic 49%, Republican 48% of judges, vacancies 3%, Biden appointees 228, Trump appointees 226, Obama, getting the scroll here, here we go. Obama 320, Bush Jr. 322, Bill Clinton 367, Bush Sr. 187, Reagan 388, Carter 261. All right, Roger with numbers. I just got to get this right on the old StreamYard. And also thanks for the super chat, Roger Meadows, who says Mumia A-Trap Brown is he's talking about who's political prisoners, right? He's saying Mumia A-Trap Brown, Mutella, and Assata Shakur were political prisoners, but not Larry Hoover. Like Dwan said, where were all these rappers advocating for them? I've been making this point that we definitely have some people in prison that you could classify as political prisoners, and where were these people for them? Thanks for that, Roger, and thanks for this one, Marlon Wells. Thanks for the super chat. He says, it took us a while to figure out he was a Republican and only did Republican things. Talking about Obama. And let's see what else we got in here. We got a few queued up. Covert White Rabbit says, we all fell for Obama's shtick. It's long past time to forget Clinton politics and fossils like James Carville. We need new people and fresh ideas. And thanks for this one, Jay Tolbert. Obama admitted he was a disappointment when he said his mainstream policies would be classified as moderate Republican if enacted back in the 80s. And that's right, we have the video. And thanks for this one, Marlon Wells. Obamacare, aka Romney Care, was a huge tax cut. It was a huge tax on the middle class and a huge windfall for the medical industry and no one else. The whole Obamacare thing, it was like a Heritage Foundation plan, and it was basically this trade-off where they regulated some of the abuses, some of the more outrageous abuses, but in a trade-off, they basically mandated that everyone had to buy into health insurance. And, like Marlon says, a great deal for the health insurance companies. And thanks for the super chat, Janice Anderson, who says, first Dems in power, not Clintons. Same policies, same grift, same bait and switch. They're all racist crooks and seem to hate the working class and poor. And I would add, they love the billionaires, and the mega corporations who they look after. And thanks for the super chat, Fuzzy Balls, who says, Obama promised us universal health care. He had the House and a filibuster-proof Senate. Trump would ram through whatever he wants, but Obama folded so fast. Yeah, and I would say it's about who they represent. Obama got past what he was paid to get past. Thanks for this one. Also, Janice. Culture wars not favored by progressives, but really favored by PMCs and political class. Progressives favor the class war, not the culture war. And thanks for this one, Marlon. If Obama wasn't in office now, he would be supporting Israel killers, just saying. And thanks for this one, Courtney Smith. Symbolism is one way the Dems keep black voters and the black church trapped in the party. And thank you, Baby Ethernet, who says Obama using the fake Southern accent is disgusting. And thanks for the super sticker, Jasmine Harrell. Appreciate you. And thanks for this one, Cool Blue, who says Democrats connected to Bill Clinton and Barack Obama campaigns and administrations continue living off their past achievements. Champions of the past, but we are not living in those periods. They are. And thanks for this one, Marlon Wells. To Obama's speech, I say, fool me once, fool me, can't get fooled again, quoting George W. Bush. And I just wanted to hit quickly, just a quick, let me bring this up here. The latest Substack post is an MCDS analysis of Trump's tariffs, and I won't get into reading it out here, but I put the link in the chat, and you can find this if you go to 11demands.org. But this is the MCDS analysis of Trump's tariffs. Getting into it, right? If you're a member or if you're into the 11 Demands Collective, the biggest thing I'd ask is to bring MCDS into your conversations and use it to analyze things. So this is an analysis using that with the money, the corruption, the demands, and the solution. And at the end, saying, join us on the old 11 Demands Collective. We've got a good list of members coming already, and ask everyone to get on board and let's see, what we can make happen. The biggest challenge we have is numbers. If we can inspire a whole bunch of people, we could make something happen. If we don't do that, then the demands really don't have a lot of meaning. It's all about getting a lot of people on board. So let's all see if we can make it happen as a collective.
That's right.
We can make it happen over in the Zoom call and hangout.
All right, let's go ahead and head on over to Callin. That link is pinned at the very top of the live chat. You guys, you've been with me for a while. You know how this works. I'll go ahead and open the Zoom room while I am on the stream. If you're new to Callin, the way this works is if you want to speak when you come into Zoom, what you are going to do is you are going to raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. There's an icon to raise your hand, and that's how I know that you want to talk. We ask everybody to mute themselves when they enter Callin, and we'll call on you if you have your hand raised, and you get to chat about tonight's stories, etc. If you come into the stream a little bit later and you want to join, won't be going too long. I have a hard stop at 12:30 ET, but you can go to sabbysabs2.com and you can get that link and the passcode as well. So I'll see you guys over on Callin. Just a reminder for those of you who came into the stream late, I'm not streaming on Fridays anymore because I'm working on that documentary. And that's taken up quite a bit of my time. Eric, I'm going to go ahead and make you a co-host. So that's already done. And then we can go ahead and dive right in. The documentary is coming great, guys. I can talk a little bit more about it on Callin. But other than that, have a good night. Keep up the fight.